The peaceful world is overrun by a mad, undead creature, endangering human lives. These terrifying zombies are summoned by the final boss, Corpse God. The number of zombies is so large that they are overflowing out of the cave. The kingdom had to send knights to defeat the final boss. But unfortunately, they were too weak. They couldn't even touch Corpse God's hair. Corpse God hasn't even gone all out yet. Even so, some people lost limbs. Some were even stabbed in the abdomen and died on the spot. To eliminate Corpse God, the church had to send out their trump card. Shagrua appeared with a majestic aura. As soon as Corpse God saw the hero, he shot deathly energy rays directly at him. Shagrua easily deflected the attack and used a speed-up spell to approach the colossal skeleton. Both sides began a fierce battle. The first blows directly attacked the opponent. The hero's powerful slashes were blocked by Corpse God, and he retaliated with a few blows. While fighting the hero, Corpse God summoned souls from all over the world into his soul orb. Then, he summoned an undead dragon that flew straight at Shagrua, but the dragon only caused trouble for the hero before being cut in half by him. While Shagrua was in a life-or-death struggle with the evil skeleton boss, his teammates just watched. They even asked each other if the hero would be defeated by Corpse God. The final boss was constantly pushed back, so in this desperate situation, he summoned an army of skeletons to counter Shagrua. But the hero's teammates decided to put their faith in him instead of helping. The hero's past. When he was a child, his loved ones were invaded by a burglar. Fortunately, Shagrua was rescued by the knights. Since then, he has dedicated himself to the church. He possesses a special thing called a demon eye, which allows him to see souls from a young age. Most people with this eye end up in the church until the end of their lives. Others, like Corpse God, chose to use their power to inflict pain on the souls of the unfortunate. Only Shagrua chose to stand up and fight for humanity. Back to the battle. Shagrua didn't want to waste time defeating countless skeletons. He fired a fireball into the cave ceiling, causing rocks to fall directly onto the final boss. After being repeatedly pushed back, Shagrua finally discovered the true form of the enemy. It was a brain kept in a cage protected within a colossal skeleton. Although both share the same demonic eyes, Shagrua's view of death differs from Corpse God. For Corpse God, the souls of others are just toys for amusement. Both launch their final attacks. The dry skeleton summons a technique with strange patterns that the hero has never seen before. But to protect the country and the future of children, he must use his ultimate technique to pierce through that magic. After a fierce battle between the two strongest forces in the kingdom, a young man wakes up in an alley, not knowing where he is. There was a deep, bloody wound on his neck. The young man was confused to see a floating city stretching out before his eyes. A young man from the cleanup crew couldn't believe his eyes that the child was still alive. He reported to his teammates that they didn't need to come because the assassin had lost all his prestige. The reincarnated young man is still trying to understand the strange things around him, from unfamiliar languages to screens displaying images without magic. Everything is strange, but what excites me most is the peace of this world and the hearty laughter of children. That's what I longed for most in my old world. While I was thinking, two police officers came to inquire about my condition. My brain just finished loading the memories, so I gradually understood what they were saying. I also remembered my name in this world is Polka. The police decided to call an ambulance to treat the wound on my neck, when a girl suddenly kicked one of the police officers in the head and quickly hugged me. A tanned man and a handsome young man noticed the incident but did not intervene. The girl led me to a quiet alley and introduced herself as Masaki. A fragment of memory returned, making me think Masaki was my friend here. Masaki nervously affirmed that her friend was not dead yet. My face, pressed against her chest, was still warm to confirm that the young man was still alive. Masaki decided to use the very knife she had used to cut my throat before to do it again. Now my memory is clearer, so I quickly ran away to avoid being killed again by this crazy girl. I retreated into a corner to think about what to do next. I can't use magic here. If I use one more life-draining spell, I might never wake up again. As soon as Masaki found my hiding spot, I had to jump away. Her knives flew towards me, but that only excited Masaki more. Polka's body couldn't keep up. With my reflexes, defending was somewhat difficult. This is the world I long to live in. That's why this reincarnated boy can't die. Now, once again, I tried to escape, but this time a knife got stuck in my leg. With all my will to survive, I pulled the knife out of my leg, threw it straight at Masaki, and ran away from a killer as experienced as her. This was the first time she had encountered such a terrifying ghoul. I walked into a room full of old bloodstains, and the crazy murderer followed right behind, stabbing another knife into my leg, causing me to fall to the ground. Misaki introduced this room as the place where horrific experiments on people were conducted. Therefore, it was called the execution zone. Because of this, rumors of restless ghosts that terrified people prevented anyone from coming near. Right here, my demon eyes were activated. I understood all the atrocities committed here. Demon eyes are tied to my soul. Therefore, wherever I go, they will follow. Hearing Misaki talk about life was truly unbearable, so I summoned a ghoul hand and gave her a hole right in the stomach. But even Corpse God didn't expect people in this world to be so easy to kill. I chilled when the female assassin I had just subdued could no longer stand up to fight back. The past of the one the world sees as a disaster began when I was born with demon eyes. My family saw them as an omen and sold me to the kingdom's mages. I became a soul-summoning mage, plunging into countless battles and being worn down to the bone. Only when the kingdom was destroyed did I gain freedom. Tired of meaningless wars, I retreated into the forest to live alone in peace. A few children and a girl still accept the terrifying appearance of Corpse God. As soon as the feelings between humans and the skeleton began to blossom, the world again called me a murderer. The church did not offer help, but branded the children living with me as a disease and took them all away. Having lost everything, I became a derelict, bearing a centuries-old grudge. The cave where I took refuge was affected by my power, unintentionally turning into a sea of corpses. One thing I always longed for was a peaceful life. After so much struggle to get a chance to start over, I couldn't let myself be killed meaninglessly in the new world. And I didn't expect people in this world to be so weak. Why doesn't this mad girl carry healing medicine or magic? Now, how can I explain to the police that I am a victim when I just gave the enemy a hole in the stomach? At this point, I still haven't realized I'm being followed. The person who has been following me since I arrived here must think I'm having delusions. He just reported to Chief Kajisa and sent her a video of this incident. Misaki, as an innocent child, was protected by a warm family. Then one fine day, a killer appeared out of nowhere and gave her parents dozens of wounds all over their bodies. After the mental shock, Misaki became the mad woman she is today and found the killer from years ago. With the protection of Chief Kajisa, she had the right to torture the murderer to teach him what pain is. As she spoke, Misaki hammered a nail into the killer's body. Misaki's pain and her pointless questions made the killer lose consciousness. Misaki gave him a chance to start a new life on the condition that he had to judge his own morality. The killer hadn't even opened his mouth when he received a straight punch to the face. Since then, Misaki has always eliminated her targets with a terrifying smile that makes some experts in the field feel uneasy. After avenging her family, Chief Kajisa gave her a new mission. This time, the target is a boy, and Misaki wants to check if she still has humanity. As a result, Misaki acted decisively as usual. She felt that if she continued to exist, one day she would betray the organization. Misaki decided to end her life, but a phone call made her temporarily postpone her plan. Takumi didn't call to stop Misaki from doing something foolish, but to inform her that the target was still alive. The victim in Misaki's execution is wandering the streets as if nothing happened. Because of this, she had to continue serving the organization, only to eventually receive a stab from those wicked skeletal hands. Misaki slowly opened her eyes but realized she hadn't turned into a ghost. Corpse God, following Takumi's instructions, had successfully resurrected into this mad, battle-crazy female assassin. She didn't believe it, so she checked her own soul. It was all thanks to Polka's magic. Kajisa ran to hug Misaki and told her that she had truly died. Now she is just a zombie. Takumi will report the situation to everyone. He is a skilled information broker who helps assassins clean up crime scenes after hunts, but he never imagined that at his age, he would encounter such a strange case. Not long ago, Kajisa gathered the whole team to inquire about the boy who had just killed her subordinate. She also asked about Takumi's situation, but after witnessing everything, he was even more confused than her. Corpse God tried to break the hole in Misaki's stomach right in front of Kajisa and her trusted subordinates. Everyone still couldn't believe these high-level tricks. When Corpse God said he needed more priests to perform some kind of resurrection magic, Kajisa's group didn't understand what he was talking about. Only then did Corpse God realize that the world he was reincarnated into didn't have these concepts, or if it did, they were only in games, so he was the first to know how to use magic. He briefly explained his magic. Of course, someone as experienced as Kajisa would not be easily fooled by such illogical things. Corpse God had to use a skeletal hand to pin a bald man to the ground to intimidate him. This forced Kajisa to ask for time to discuss what to do with this priest. As both sides were at a loss, Takumi suddenly started playing news about a recent fire. As soon as he heard news related to children, Corpse God sent an eye to scout. Although the eye was immediately cut into two by Kajisa's subordinate, Corpse God didn't want to harm them because he was only curious about the fate of the children in the fire. They were all orphans, with families related to the underworld, so most of them had similar fates. Hearing this, Corpse God remembered his own past and wanted to save those unfortunate children. Kajisa tested his resolve by assigning Takumi to supervise. Corpse God's movements looked like a glitching Spider-Man. Upon arrival, he opened his demonic eyes to check if the children had died yet. Then, Corpse God casually threw himself into the flames with one hand, as if he were taking a stroll in a shopping mall. Takumi's face turned pale. His blood pressure dropped, fearing that the media would capture this scene and post sensational headlines. In the sea of flames, the souls of the children's parents stood beside them, trying to protect their children. The protagonist summoned a group of skeletons to possess and rescue the children. In a brief moment, the children felt the last warmth of their parents. When finished, Corpse God created another invisible hand, grabbed all the children, and dropped them to the rescue team. The mission was complete, but netizens quickly took photos and posted them online. Takumi still didn't understand what this guy was thinking about life. Then, Misaki woke up and returned to her original profession, acting. Corpse God shared his feelings with Kajisa. First, to live peacefully, he needed money. Next, his unique ability here was very strange. Therefore, Kajisa quickly recruited the protagonist by providing a support combo, including the battle-crazed Misaki and Takumi, to complete the trio. The life of a lone person and two individuals with psychological issues began. Takumi worried if the girl with mental instability could live with the person who killed her. Of course, besides her excitement, Misaki didn't have many problems. The entire building where the three of them lived was owned by Kajisa. With Corpse God's disappearing and appearing tricks, Takumi was truly worried if one day he would be stabbed. I had to come up with reasons to explain to Poka's family about his absence. Poka's family only knew he was traveling and their son sent postcards monthly. I am researching the new world I have reincarnated into. Everything seemed different. For example, whales here were mythical, magical beasts in the old world. Are there any drum-eating whales like mine by my spear when I was a giant skeleton? Back then, I was bothered by fanatics who wanted to fight me every day. Takumi wondered what Poka's nickname was in the old world. As soon as he heard the name Corpse God, Misaki's eyes lit up because it sounded really cool. To achieve a peaceful life, as in legends, Corpse God must first escape the fate of a poor soul. Next, he must persuade the person who ordered the killing of this body's original owner. To protect customer information, Kajisa cannot reveal that person's identity to him. But the cheerful landlady promised not to take any more jobs involving this body. Corpse God can relax and have fun. Takumi personally thought no one was foolish enough to provoke Corpse God, but currently, what worries him more is that the psychopath who killed Poka is living in the same house with them. Fortunately, Poka's soul was generous enough to forgive Misaki. Thanks to Corpse God's intervention, the unfortunate boy's soul is now in Takumi's drone. That's also why he can't control it anymore. But what bothers him is Corpse God's view that human lives are like toys. That point of view still makes Takumi very wary of this seemingly harmless brat. Just as they needed money to escape poverty, a client came asking Misaki to protect him from foreign assassins. She intended to refuse so she could play with bone hands, but Corpse God appeared out of nowhere and took the job instead of her. This time, Misaki had to agree to participate. The job's content was to deal with the assassins who wanted to kill the client. They all teamed up with the cold-blooded assassin Rima, whom Misaki had just force-fed a steel bar for her poor moral standards. This gang works very cruelly because they often kill the victim's entire family at once. According to Takumi's information, they had all come to their refuge. Misaki remembered the man who had harmed her parents, so she was a bit furious. She rushed into the enemy's lair like an out-of-control vehicle, but for some reason, the enemy was already waiting there to ambush them. 2 to 3 thugs wielding iron rods rushed out and attacked Misaki continuously. She gave one thug a blow to the eye, bruising one side of his face. The second thug was also kicked in the face and fell, causing the remaining people to trample each other in a panic and flee. The thug whose eye was bruised had just woken up when Misaki kicked him again, crushing his remaining eye. Although a bit perverse, Misaki's strength is truly admirable. While the woman was distracted, they played dirty and shot through her. The shooter was the uncle who assigned them the task. It turns out this uncle is also in the gang with Rima, who was killed by Misaki a few days ago. At this moment, Corpse God with his devilish eyes finally appears, and he will complete the task he received. The devilish uncle shines his light on Corpse God, but he didn't expect that the female assassin was still alive. Grinning, she is testing the new strength from her immortal body. Now, not only can the clan not bring her down, but her strength is also greater than that of physical monsters. Online, Takumi calls Corpse God to ask why he knew that man was the real killer. All thanks to Corpse God's devilish eyes that helped him see the children this man harmed. The mission Corpse God received was actually from the unfortunate children, not from that evil man. It's time for the protagonist to teach these murderers how to respect the future seeds of the country. A giant hand emerges from the ground, crushing the entire murderous gang and crushing them into a ball. After completing the mission, Corpse God refuses to accept payment from the children because he took this mission partly to vent his anger at the bad guys. Back home, Corpse God admires Misaki's pure soul while she checks her newly upgraded body. Corpse God is a bit surprised that the girls in this world are so aggressive. Takumi still wants to understand the protagonist's definition of treating people as toys, so he asks directly. For him, toys are things that help children have fun, so he cherishes other people's lives. In general, this guy is just an illogical idiot. Takumi reports back to Sergeant Kajisa. She promised not to take on any more missions to kill Corpse God. Those who just assigned the despicable mission will likely have to face the consequences. They are being hunted, and their leader mentioned the name Lemmings before dying. Corpse God is still on his journey to reintegrate into society, and Misaki just realized she can evolve. It seems like everything around Corpse God is like a game. Kajisa is naked, talking to her two subordinates. Corpse God called again, but Takumi has officially cut ties. Because of this, Misaki has become a zombie but still retains her sanity. Takumi suspects the city will soon fall into chaos. At a bar, a blonde young man is waiting for Takumi to arrive. While chatting with the bartender, he accidentally touches the waitress's buttocks and is lectured by the security guard, as bland as a piece of beef outside the market. Corpse God at home is revealing information about Misaki's immortal body. Now she can eat meat to heal wounds and can paralyze opponents with a bite that causes numbness. As soon as she heard this, Misaki immediately tried it on Corpse God. She also begged Takumi to bite her. Corpse God is still unconscious in a corner, while imagining the monsters here and the monsters in the old world. If we talk about the real monsters in this world, maybe we should mention the ice-breaking youth Lemmings. Lemmings is at the scene where Corpse God has rolled up all those criminals. This place attracted the police's attention because of the screams. Before the police discovered it, Lemmings removed the earth ball created by Corpse God, revealing a group of people rolled up together. After the incident was discovered, police from the third squad were called to the scene, including the horny addict who was drunk at the bar and the young man Arase who used his head to beat several swindlers to death at the bar. To avoid killing people again, this time I was careful and restrained. Iwanom and Aras have now arrived at the crime scene. This is the first time they have seen corpses rolled up together. For such supernatural phenomena, it is not surprising that they called their team. Iwanome and Ares both belong to the 3rd Data Editing Squad, with Iwanome as the team leader. Their team specializes in handling supernatural cases that humans cannot explain. From the Corpse God to the Fire Funeral Master, since their appearance, disasters have also appeared one after another, making the police extremely busy. At the Shinjuku police station, the special forces are meeting about unexplained cases that have occurred recently. Their job is to keep these secrets and quietly apprehend each perpetrator. The most dangerous entities currently are the God of Death, Hua Qiu Truong, and Lemmings. Additionally, there is a rising star, the skeletal remains of the reincarnated boy, Corpse God. Lemmings, traces at the crime scene related to Corpse God, further confused the group. The criteria for the 3rd data editing team is to expose those who claim to be necromancers. For them, as long as it's flesh and bones, they can handle it. I successfully transferred Polka's true soul into a stuffed shark. Takumi was happy to get his beloved drone back. Poka felt even happier because ever since using the cloaking technique on the drone, or rather, the stuffed shark, he's always had his face pressed against heaven. It's not difficult for Poka to speak with me. I just need to borrow someone's vocal cords. Then, I can use magic to help the owner speak again, but doing so consumes a lot of magic. First, I need to replenish my urgent soul energy. The ability of a soul summoning mage is to extract the souls of the deceased and turn them into their own magic. Instead of looking for places with dense spiritual energy, I can use gemstones as a substitute. The good news is that this world has many types of gemstones, just like my old world. I am very satisfied because if I can recover a considerable amount of magic, I can bother the wealthy old ladies here. The bad news is I had to change my mind after Takumi advised me to visit a jewelry store to check prices. A small gemstone costs as much as a policeman's monthly salary. I am very disappointed that in my old world, even children could easily buy these low-quality stones. For me to be able to buy this entire store, it would probably take at least 100 years with a poor soul like me. On the way back, I was quite disappointed that a colossal source of magic was right in front of me, and I couldn't reach it. If I absorbed it, all the stones here would turn to dust. The trio was chatting when a dark-skinned man suddenly rushed over and snatched Takumi's drone. That was a race from Team 3, managed by Iwanome. Captain Iwanome is still investigating whether Rima's burial case is related to Kajisa's subordinate. Meanwhile, Misaki warned me that the man before them was very difficult to deal with. Even Takumi was silent in the face of the dangerous situation the group was facing. Takumi had intended to remain silent and pretend to be deaf to let the matter pass. But I spoke up, demanding the drone back from my friend. As soon as Erase heard I was involved with this assassin's gang, he hurriedly advised against it. But contrary to his expectations, this only made me more enraged. I had experienced firsthand how the vicious society had affected my loved ones in the outside world. Therefore, no one has the right to choose friends for me. The killing intent emanating from me made Erase hurriedly back down. My dangerousness further excited the dark-skinned man. After all, he used to be a vicious socialite in the past. He dismantled Takumi's entire gang in an instant. Takumi knew this brute better than anyone, so he tried to stop me from revealing my strength in front of Erase. While talking, I almost revealed my previous life's identity. Takumi had to call Arans directly to reconcile, but his real intention was to use the drone to summon more police to film the police beating civilians. Arase could not stop the underworld methods. Therefore, he proceeded to expose Takumi's past. He told about how Takumi revealed all his comrades' secrets to save his own life. But unfortunately for Arase, I felt that Comrade was much better than this dark-skinned brute. My overwhelming aura for a moment made the policeman fearful, thinking the boy was hiding his abilities. While the two were exchanging loving glances, Misaki used a concealment technique. She suddenly appeared behind Arase and delivered a kick that sent him flying into the wall. She quickly pulled me out of the ominous alley. Misaki's strong kick dazed the dark-skinned brute for a few seconds, but that was enough for me to summon some skeletons to lift both of us onto the stage. After the commotion, the group had a sincere conversation about why Takumi was exposed. At that time, I didn't care about my secret being revealed. In my world, there's a type of magic from the Touhou series that can extract all information from people. That's why I value teamwork more than my own privacy. Godadon hurried back to base to ask his teammates to investigate the footprints on his body. An experienced old lady just saw a bunch of kids beating someone up for a while. Unexpectedly, Aras's teammate immediately recognized these footprints had appeared at the scene where Rima's gang was buried alive. She advised Erase to go to his room to study, to avoid being judged by others. Erase didn't care and gave a terrifying smile. Since last year, lemmings have started to appear. If ordered, he will do anything, and those who face him will surely die. Even if they transform into something else, the result is always a broken corner of their back. Iwanome was drinking with beautiful girls at Kajisa's place. He drank and revealed information about criminals labeled as spiritual beings, like corpse god or lemmings. Somehow, this drunkard can reveal those secrets when Kajisa's subordinates are all around. They can continue to pretend if corpse god and Misaki's unstable mind don't visit and cause trouble. At first, he didn't care until he received a message from Araz. Iwanome quickly invited the Misaki couple to play with him, making an excuse for his teammates to come. Takumi also discovered that Aras was leading a group of police officers. Meanwhile, Corpse God was enjoying the highest quality drink he had ever tasted. Aras's group arrived at Kajisa's bar. Takumi arrived just in time to warn his team, but it was too late. Just as Corpse God and Misaki were about to be taken away, the lights in the bar suddenly went out. It wasn't Kajisa who did it to help his subordinates escape. Lemmings did that. I was about to use my demon eyes to escape with Misaki, but suddenly I felt a terrifying presence. As Iwanoma lit up, everyone in the room discovered a very terrifying figure. The bandaged man Lemmings was hanging from the chandelier. The room was dimly lit. Lemmings jumped down from the chandelier and stood firm on the table. Kajisa realized he came with a different purpose, so she restrained her subordinate from taking action. If he wanted to kill, everyone in this room would have already died. Iwanome's team looked very serious, determined to capture Lemmings at all costs. Some police officers were hit and flew out. Lemmings moved at incredible speed, taking down each supporting character one by one. Erase jumped into battle with the zombie warrior to buy time for the police. He kicked a bottle straight into the zombie's stomach, but it had no effect. He didn't even pay attention to the police chief and went straight to Misaki. He picked up the naive female student and ran away right in front of the protagonist. I hesitated to use magic. If the police found out, my future life would be no different from that of a pig. While I was lost in thought, Erase continued to chase and fight Lemmings. Lemmings kicked him into the wall for the second time that day. Most appropriately at this moment, I surrounded Lemmings with magic, a bony hand hitting the zombie's back, forcing him to release Misaki. Seizing the opportunity, I told Misaki to quickly leave the battlefield. Kajisa also knew I was acting, so she blew out the last embers to disorient the police. Iwanome had just discovered Misaki being held by a bony hand with his flashlight. Lemmings had no intention of letting his target escape. He charged like a god, blowing away all my bony hands, even though it was pitch black around me. But when he approached Misaki again, he only exchanged something with her. To protect my safety, Misaki had to reveal the secret that Lemmings wanted to know. She also tried to bite him with a paralyzing poison, but his ice was too thick. However, Misaki's goal was to plunge her poison dagger into Lemmings' head. He immediately began to spin wildly in confusion. Everything around seemed like a countdown due to the poison. While Misaki was stalling, I cast a game-hacking spell that made the boss have an accident. After everything, Kajisa's bar was a mess. Even Iwanome was terrified when facing the disaster known as Lemmings. Lemmings was not killed by me. He returned unharmed to report to his superior. He was sent a handsome young man named Takeru to investigate whether Rima had truly died. He also provided information about Corpse God after being logged out. Takumi was very surprised that his two leopards survived the recent disaster. Lemmings appear wherever there is drama. Fortunately, despite being chosen as a target, they were still able to make fun of each other. I used a lot of energy to fight the Lemmings, but I still collected some magic from the vengeful spirits killed by the Lemmings. I also thanked Misaki for keeping both of us alive. She had to reveal a secret. I remembered the priestess's words. The priestess realized this boy would live a very long time, so she wanted me to help his companions. Currently, I still feel weak and useless, unable to protect my teammates. Now, I am willing to give up a peaceful life to keep my companions from dying soon. I finally realized after the recent intense battle that my magic power is still very limited. Now I will focus on getting rich and buying gems. Although it sounds absurd, my power can be used for many tricks. One of them is to make a pact with still conscious souls. The witch is trying to convey something to them as an example. Misaki and I came up with a clever plan, but as soon as she heard the idea from these two simpletons, Takumi flatly rejected them. The witch I made a pact with had an even better idea. Turned the naive protagonist into a sorcerer. Thanks to the group's combination ability, the plan was smoothly executed. Everyone believed in Corpse God's prophecies because the information he provided was very accurate. Thanks to Takumi and the Demon Eye, I helped an old woman find the safe containing her late husband's treasure. They obtained a considerable sum of money, but I still decided to share it all with everyone. Polka was a bit enthusiastic because he didn't want to accept this money. Takumi was about to reveal his terrifying background when a few men in suits rushed in. They are the bodyguards of Polka's two grandchildren. Thanks to Polka in shark form, I quickly recognized them. I wear a skull hat, call myself Corpse God, and say some nonsensical words to deceive children. Of course, this useless trick can't fool anyone. The purpose of the twin gods is not to catch me, but because they heard that their uncle is a fortune teller here and wants to have their fortune told. Unexpectedly, they were tricked because it was not the time to work for the group. Takumi even called the police to take the twins back to the orphanage for disturbing the peace. Seeing the two children about to cry from fear, I hugged the twins tightly. Suddenly, I told my two children that they would have a future and promised the ghost following them that I would protect them. That was also the mission I received from the ghost, always following to protect the twins. Before going home to carry out the mission, I need to stuff all the knowledge about Polka's family into my head. Born with a silver spoon, Polka is the youngest son of the chairman of the Shinoyama conglomerate, with enough wealth to buy dozens of islands. Surprisingly, the huge fortune from his decisive father will be inherited by Polka. He doesn't have any other plans than to have a servant as a bodyguard when he goes home. Suddenly, the whole group remembered the girl with a student's face but the personality of an assassin in their group. The twins suspected they didn't know if this man was really their uncle. Both suddenly froze when they saw the face of their older brother, Takeru, already sitting in the car. As soon as they were about to be scolded, they announced that their father's beloved son was about to come home, so they were not blamed. Who knows what dangers will soon befall the twins? The next day, I took Polka and Misaki to Polka's real home. To celebrate his return, the whole family gathered at the dining table to welcome him. According to what Takumi said, the person sitting in front of me is my nephew Takeru, my brother's son. Takeru is an extremely fearsome person. At only 26 years old, he is already the security director of Shinoyama, a place rumored to hire former police officers, mainly to clean up messes and eliminate obstacles. Misaki came as Polka's friend, formerly a young lady from an influential family. It's doubtful that the rich don't make things difficult for her. Next to me is my other granddaughter, Sayoa, and her husband, Rosen. While everyone was talking, Rosen suddenly appeared at the door, surprising everyone. Seeing him appear, the grandson immediately ran up to him, wanting to discuss business matters. Rosen turned away, refusing. He is still retired. If they want to discuss business, they should find someone else. His demeanor was so strong that it made the grandson pale and not dare to say more. After getting rid of the annoyance, Rosen asked about Polka. I, hearing my name mentioned, immediately stood up. I apologized to the man on behalf of Polka for leaving without saying a word. Rosen is indeed a doting father. He didn't blame at all, but just gently petted the child's head. He immediately called both Corpse God and Misaki into another room to talk. Corpse God briefly recounted the story he had recently gone through, thinking he had successfully hidden everything. Suddenly, Rosen asked a question that made him freeze. Who are you, in the end? Rosen had clearly realized that this was not his son. He immediately drew his sword and pointed it at Corpse God. Although old, he is not easy to deal with, and moreover, he is a father. I suddenly realized that I had underestimated the father-child relationship. This father is completely different from the one who easily sold me for money in my past life. Suddenly, I had a premonition. I want to confront Rosen to save Shizuki and Kazuki. Those children are in danger. After finishing, I will explain to you later. Although he didn't understand, Rosen still let me go. As soon as I jumped, everyone started screaming about a fire. Only then did Rosen realize that what I said was not a joke. Previously, this house had a serious fire incident. At that time, Shizuki and Kazuki were still young. The two children came back from playing and lost the wallet that their older sister Suzuka had given them. Suzuka saw Kazuki crying so much that she went to the garden to find her sister for help. While searching, she accidentally overheard a secret she shouldn't have heard from Rosen's grandson. He was colluding with someone to burn down the twin sisters and fake a scene of an accident. He had been planning this for 2 years. Suzuka was so shocked that she made a noise and was discovered. She tried to escape but was not fast enough and was caught by the man and burned alive. Suzuka's death was considered an accident. Since then, she has become a ghost spirit that follows and protects the two children. Shizuki and Kazuki are in danger. There is a fire in the house, and a guard appears, leading the two. Suzuka clearly knows something is wrong with that man, but other than watching her sisters run to their deaths, she can't do anything else. At the Tokyo Detention Center, Iwanome and Arase arrive to interview another regular criminal they've captured. He is Solitaire, a formerly very talented wizard. Iwanome asks him about the orphanage fire that left some skeletons. This fire is confirmed to be related to the Flame of Tribulation, a criminal famous for leaving horrific crime reports at the scene. This world is full of fraud that appears at crime scenes caused by him. Flames also spread at an alarming rate. The police hypothesize that he might have disguised himself as someone in the house, taking time to set up the fire, then acting like ants devouring a house. The twin sisters are following the man. He leads them to a basement door to escape the fire. Kazuki suddenly stops. She remembers there is no exit from that basement. So why is this person leading them down there? The man, seeing he could no longer hide it, revealed his true face. He approaches the twins, his hands emitting electric sparks. Suzuka's spirit tries to stop him. shouting in vain. Just then, Misaki appears and throws a ball that makes the man's mask fall off, revealing his true face. She quickly tells the two children to run so she can fight this guy alone. From the beginning, she realized this man knew her. Therefore, ever since they were at Corpse God's house, he had been wary of her. Seeing himself exposed, he immediately created a fire. Misaki doesn't hesitate to play with him. Her strength makes him doubt if she is a monster rather than a human. How can a human be this strong? Misaki takes a steel pipe and spins it to sweep away the flames he created. At this moment, she realizes this man is not panicked, that the two children ran away. He has set fire to the entire area. Shizuki and Kazuki hold hands, accepting their fate. Perhaps this is their karma. Surely their sister Suzuka must have hated them back then. It was because of them that Sister Ayase died. They both swore that when they went down there they would apologize to the lady properly. Just as they thought they were about to die, they no longer saw wooden beams falling on their heads. Instead, Polka appeared. He summoned magic to prevent the collapse from crushing the two children and save them. Takeru now had the situation under control and sent people to clean up the aftermath. The Rosen descendant, who was relieved to escape, was caught by an assassin from the Shinoyama clan. Hu Xiaochong was very confused to see that the two children were still safe and sound. He was captured by Corpse God while disguised as a servant. How could he escape the devil's eyes? Even if he changed his appearance, the color of his soul would not change. Moreover, he was haunted by the vengeful spirits of those he had killed. Huo Xiaochong tried to escape but was thrown against the wall by Misaki. If he had enough magical power, Corpse God would have tortured this guy for hundreds of years. Huo Xiaochong sneered contemptuously. Corpse God reminded him of arrogant boys. He immediately created a large wall of fire to separate Misaki and Corpse God from him. I broke out in a cold sweat. I was afraid I didn't have enough magical power to overcome this wall of fire. Suddenly, I saw a figure standing next to Huo Xiaochong. Lemmings appeared out of nowhere and slammed the man's head to the ground, killing him instantly. He appeared mysteriously and disappeared just as mysteriously, leaving them with a clue to keep this matter a secret. The descendant was taken back to headquarters by Takeru for interrogation. A fool at this level dared to oppose an entire clan. After hearing Iwanome talk about Huo Xiaochong, Solitaire found it very interesting. Huo Xiaochong, a master of disguise and trickery, were just the characteristics of a typical villain, a pseudonymous person. Huo Xiaochong's actions truly transcended the ordinary and were unrelated to any petty methods. Moreover, Solitaire discovered that Iwanome was hiding the latter part of the message that the fake Huo Xiaochong had left behind. At this moment, while the fake Huo Xiaochong was being apprehended by the police, a line of fire suddenly appeared on the ceiling of the car. The police officers stared blankly at him as if hypnotized. By the time Ho Chu Truong realized it, he had been burned to death. The police officers returned to normal and jumped out of the car before it completely exploded. Ho Thieu Truong, a true hero, appeared and killed the imposter. After the fire ended and everything was settled, I returned to speak with Polka's father as promised, because the story I'm about to tell is a secret. I want the silent attendants nearby to leave. Rosen was very surprised. He was sure his subordinate had hidden his presence. Yet, I still detected their presence. Rosen ordered them to leave as requested. Only then did I feel comfortable telling the story of my true identity and how everything began. After hearing the story, Rosen could hardly believe his ears. It was a story no one could believe, but looking at those moving eyes, he had no choice but to believe. However, he still could not forgive Misaki after knowing she was the one who killed his son. Rosen immediately pointed his sword at Misaki. Polka suddenly jumped out in the form of a stuffed animal to intervene. This action reminded the father of a previous scene, and he immediately realized this was his son. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Looking at his son, whose body was occupied, now living in a stuffed animal, he seemed very happy. It seems that being in this stuffed animal form isn't so bad. He bounced in front of me for a while. Seeing this, Rosen could no longer be angry. Rosen requested a body for Corpse God, a sophisticated robot that the Shinoyama clan was researching. Polka was very excited. Since the body would be given away anyway, wouldn't a higher quality body be better? He wanted a robot body with a gun and flight capabilities. That sounds disgusting. In short, if someone really wanted to take Polka's life, the father completely agreed to let Corpse God continue to use his son's body. Both returned to their original state. I made a call to report to Takumi. Although I revealed all my secrets, it was only to Rosen, so it should be fine. After the fire incident, Polka the walrus was still upset about his burnt belongings. Masaki comforted Polka and apologized for killing him. All problems become meaningless when confronted with something soft and comfortable. I am incredibly surprised that anyone can forgive someone who killed them so easily. Rosen's 2 children ran to thank Masaki and Corpse God for saving them from the fire. Corpse God took the opportunity to promote the name Corpse God to the 2 children. The souls that followed them had fulfilled their wishes. Suzuka has returned to normal and continues to protect the children. Iwanome was interviewing a lawyer when he suddenly heard that the arsonist had been killed. Solitaire requested to see the footage of the arson scene, but Iwanome wanted him to provide some information first. There must be a give and take. Suddenly, the lights went out. When the lights came back on, Solitaire, who was handcuffed, had inexplicably disappeared. Solitaire's disappearance caused trouble for the leader Iwanome and the red-haired arrays. The first case he caused was 3 years ago, stealing paintings to create content for streamers. How ridiculous. The second case was that a government building inexplicably disappeared. This time, it involves human lives, but there is not enough evidence. There was also a case of a politician being kidnapped with a red cloth. The politician grew a large mushroom on his head, and when the guards removed it, he disappeared. Solitaire then went on television to brag grandly, making Japan a laughingstock to the world. The politician was later released, but seemed to be happy and fine. After that, Solitaire went to the police headquarters, asking Iwanome to handcuff him and saying meaningless things about using his magic to save the protagonist. Solitaire wanted to inform other criminals out there that real magic exists. He caused chaos in Japan just to find his talented apprentices. While the outside world was in turmoil, Takumi and Corpse God were leisurely shopping. Both had just bought a radio. When they turned it on to test it, it happened to be reporting on the fire incident this afternoon and Solitaire's message. Iwanome's police squad also watched the news. This really angered the police. All the information they had hidden was exposed by this bastard. Solitaire went on television to introduce himself, announced to the whole world that he has returned and is more powerful than ever. A grand return is promised to meet everyone next week. Until then, enjoy peace. Iwanome guessed that he might have bought something from a general store to livestream. Solitaire approached Hua Tuotruong to persuade him to join his side. He preached for a long time, but the other person remained silent. Suddenly, Solitaire received a phone call. He thought the general store owner was calling, but it was Hua Tuotruong, standing less than 10 meters away. Hua Tuotruong asked him how he could detect his presence. He even planned to assassinate that guy. Did he think this cheat was that simple? Just disguise himself, and it's done. Corpse God's group identified Solitaire as a dangerous person in his world. He had never seen such a case. There are often more abnormal situations, which sound frightening. There is even a destroyer who can kill him. This world has no dragons. However, the dragon shape humans imagine is quite similar to the dragons in Corpse God's world. Takumi guessed that perhaps the things we imagine here are similar to real beings in other worlds. There seem to be fire and wind spirits. Speaking of fire spirits, Hua Tuotruong is no different. He continuously attacked Solitaire with fire. Solitaire used his agility and abilities to escape the sea of fire created by Hua Tuotruong. His limbs were moving, but his mouth was still flowing, trying to persuade the other party to join his side. Even when burned, he did not give up. Hua Tuotruong felt that he and Solitaire did not share the same ambition. After a period of close combat, Solitaire suddenly gained the upper hand, appearing right at Hua Tuotruong's window. Solitaire regretted that Hua Tuotruong's power was not an ancient magic as he thought. Hua Tuotruong didn't care about fairy tales. If there are things like fairy tales that he considers the world's trash, he will deal with them himself. Corpse God's trio was still excitedly chatting about everything in the world, related to the 2 worlds, when suddenly the doorbell rang. Polka's niece, Sayoa, suddenly visited, much to the surprise of all 3. Sayoa showed everyone a video clip of Rosan. Rosan wanted Sayoa to stay with Corpse God. Both Polka's and Sayoa's rooms at home had burned to ashes, so he wanted Sayoa to stay with his son for a while. He also dispatched some knights to keep an eye on them. Corpse God felt this was also an opportunity to check if Sayoa was targeting him. Therefore, he agreed to let her and her knights stay. The next morning when I woke up, I found Sayoa lying in a toy shark on the floor. Although the fangirl of sharks herself said that a sleeping bag was enough, the group couldn't let 2 new members sleep idly. or roll around on the floor like that. They were about to go buy a mattress when the group heard news that Xiao Yu was currently being interrogated by the police. Indeed, Iwanomen and Arase had arrived to investigate the suspicious matters in this case. Looking at the bewildered appearance of the soldiers, the Kazuki and Shizuki sisters did not expect them to be investigating police officers. They thought they were indebted socialites. Before they could ask anything, the chaotic god Takeru appeared to greet them. The soldiers from the police force had traveled a long distance to inquire about information on Fire Dragon. Instead of getting more clues, Iwanomi was questioned why people like Fire Dragon were allowed to roam freely on the streets. Furthermore, Iwanomi doubled his shame when Takeru mentioned the news of the illusionist Solitaire's recent escape. Previously, he had kidnapped Japanese leaders live on a televised broadcast, causing stock prices to spiral uncontrollably, affecting everyone, including the Shinoyama clan. Takeru demanded that the police stop slacking and do something more useful. After leaving, Arase told Iwanome that the two men following Takeru could very well be ninjas, especially the taller one. Arase said he was the type of person like himself who liked to solve problems with his fists. Their trip still yielded surprising results. Iwanome quickly and stealthily managed to capture a 3-generation photo of the Shinoyama clan. Most notably, Polka's nephew was also in the photo. According to reports received, both Corpse God and Misaki have appeared at the scene of the fire. This cannot be just another unreasonable coincidence. Iwanome realized that recent events all involve this person. Regarding Corpse God's group, they prepared a bedroom and a bed for 2 new members unexpectedly. Xiao Yu's sleeping place was like a public restroom, but he was very satisfied. Both quickly settled in, and Corpse God's group returned to their battle room. That night, while Sayoa was fast asleep, Xiao Yu woke up to eavesdrop on the conversation between Corpse God and his comrade. Xiao Yu wanted to expose the true face of the Shinoyama family imposter. Although Rozan had guaranteed Polka's fake loyalty, Xiao Yu still decided to doubt him to the end. Furthermore, if Polka was truly alive, he would eliminate the person impersonating the family. The reason is that Xiao Yu considered Polka a weakling. Therefore, he felt he was more worthy of being Rozan's son. Xiao Yu recalled the moment he lost his limbs during his first mission with the old family. His biological father planned to use his son's ruined body to turn him into a device for the clan, nurturing the most disgusting poison in the intestines, something more painful than a quick death. At that moment, Polka's father appeared like a god and offered to buy the unfortunate Xiao Yu. He couldn't bear to see a child used as a common tool by those mad scientists. In return, Rozan gave Xiao Yu's family access to the conglomerate's latest technologies. It was one of the rare times someone had a gentle smile and saved his miserable life. Kajisa's father also recounted the secret lineage of the Shinoyama family with its bright and dark sides. They had an assassin organization. Therefore, according to Kajisa's 2 daughters, hiring an external assassin to execute Polka seemed a bit extravagant. This was understandable, as Polka was Rozan's prized son. Thus, it was difficult to take action. The assassin organization closely linked to the Shinoyama family is Xiao Yu's family, who hold perverse customs. As for Corpse God's group, they are still being eavesdropped on by Xiao Yu without their knowledge. But most of what the group spoke about was related to the dragons from the main character's world, including a love story between a hybrid dragon and a royal knight. After listening, Xiao Yu thought they were delusional because he couldn't understand which game they were discussing. Furthermore, he occasionally heard a rattling sound when Misaki was dancing with a skeleton. He also sometimes heard the desperate whispers of souls who had communicated with Corpse God as the bamboo hat turned. While not understanding what was happening, Xiao Yu was startled because Corpse God knew he wasn't asleep and was guarding Sayoa's room. For a skilled assassin, this was like an indirect threat. This further determined Xiao Yu to expose the true face of this young master. At the police station, the team led by Iwanome began to pay more attention to the Shinoyama family's young master. The information gathered by Iwanome and Arase primarily focused on Polka having recently run away from home and being in contact with the information broker Takumi. Next, he spoke a lot like a game addict. Previously, Corpse God had inadvertently mentioned being sold off by his family in the old world. To others, this detail would be discarded, but a curious person like Iwanome noticed the abnormality. Polka was living happily with his family, so why did he say he was thrown into the trash? Finally, Corpse God was working as a psychic in Shinjuku. This might be good news for Solitaire, as he was hunting real mages in this world. Indeed, the magician Solitaire was trying to reintegrate into society after many years in prison. While showing off to his fans, he accidentally bumped into the police. Therefore, a marathon was organized between the show-off saint and 2 police officers. Corpse God's group was preparing to make money when Iwanome and Arase knocked on their door to ask questions. The surprise raid by these 2 made Takumi tremble like a hairdryer under the table. The purpose of both of them coming here was to verify whether Corpse God's calculation skills were as rumored. How will the professional chefs group deal with this dangerous situation? Iwanome didn't come today to cause trouble for Corpse God's group. He just wanted to verify the professional chef's mind control ability. As for Arase, he only came today to eavesdrop, not with any intention of fortune-telling. During the conversation, both of them noticed Takumi's desk in the corner of the room. First, to prevent the hero from being taken for tea, Corpse God invited the 2 distinguished guests to the next room to proceed with the business. Before getting to the main part, Iwanome reminded Corpse God that he needed to pay taxes if he wanted to practice fortune-telling. From the start, Corpse God interrupted, saying he couldn't reveal Solitaire's whereabouts, so don't ask such silly questions. It was an insult to the police, and the team leader's face wasn't thick enough to ask him for a solution. Seeing Corpse God's demeanor as he conjured a glowing orb surprised Sayoa about herself. Even the swordsman Xiaoyu had to admit that Corpse God's skills were quite something, but he was still waiting for an opportunity for the 2 policemen to take him for a drink. Back to the fortune-telling. The information was so accurate that Iwanome could only guess how Takumi was transmitting information to the main character. Takumi even received information that Iwanome was looking for a date to escape his fate of being his right-hand man. Now, let's move on to more exciting events that Iwanome couldn't keep his composure. Corpse God suddenly mentioned the biggest crisis in Iwanome's life, but he didn't tell him how to solve it. Suddenly, the chopstick on the table stood straight up, and half of the captain's heart left his body to go on a trip. While the magical chopstick was writing something, Xiaoyu, who was watching, recalled hearing this sound last night. Surely, these people had prepared this trick beforehand. After seeing what the chopstick wrote, Iwanome suddenly lost his composure and lunged at Corpse God's collar. The drawing reminded him of the time he worked with his predecessor. This was the symbol that person had shown him and then quickly burned. Iwanome was very surprised how the Shinoyama family could know this secret, but Iwanome quickly regained his composure and paid a considerable sum to compensate for Corpse God's brainwashing. Before the police squad, cursed by the demon of wandering, was found, they already heard their real name. The name Corpse God made one think of a disaster. Everything returned to its place. But Xiaoyu felt something strange about Iwanome during the fortune-telling, but he still had to fulfill his role as a butler. Therefore, he couldn't stay to eavesdrop further. While Iwanome was having dinner with his colleagues, the atmosphere was a bit quiet. Iwanome decided to speak first, to make Arase comfortable interviewing him about why he lost his composure just now. Something was enough to make a calm person like the blonde man's hair stand on end. Iwanome promised to explain everything to his colleague while they moved to the next location. Xiaoyu wanted to know exactly what happened, so he took the opportunity to go buy food and some shark fins for Sayoa. Now he had some time to follow the main police squad. In another location, a criminal gang was trying to retrieve a paper containing important information. Unfortunately, they were ambushed by Firemaster from behind. Finally, the one who got the torn paper was the magician Solitaire. He also discovered a secret symbol inside the paper. Solitaire found something interesting from this symbol. Therefore, he had a crazy plan in his head. Back with Corpse God's group. After escaping the fate of being interrogated by the police, Corpse God admitted the truth. He didn't see any souls following. What about the symbol that made a person like the blonde man panicked? Where did he get it from? Iwanome went to find Kajisa, but this time he wanted to ask for information about that person. He knew Polka had a connection with Kajisa's organization. Therefore, what he wanted to know was why that person wanted to transmit information that only he and that person knew through Polka. But Kajisa, hearing this, didn't understand because she didn't know who Iwanome was referring to. While they were arguing, the spiky-haired Xiaoyu was still hiding in the ventilation shaft to eavesdrop. Corpse God also honestly said that because the room was too dark, he didn't know what the content of the paper was. The person Iwanome was looking for was the fixer who had a transaction with Corpse God named Hosorogi. He was also Kajisa's beloved predecessor. Finally, everything became clear that the keepsake Iwanome was always looking for was the same keepsake. Misaki was also delighted to know that Hosorogi had recognized the blonde officer from the beginning. What made the team leader Iwanome so angry was that Hosorogi had previously said that their cybersecurity unit was responsible for protecting children's past, present, and future. Therefore, dragging a child into such dangerous events was unnecessary. That's why he wanted to confirm if Kajisa was exploiting children for profit. Kajisa blamed the surroundings of Corpse God for his intentions, and she only lent the house to the children. This might cause Corpse God and Misaki to be visited by evil forces. Before leaving the bar, Iwanome vowed to eliminate the entire police force to pave the way for his keepsake to return one day. Kajisa's subordinates were also worried that Corpse God was involved with Hosorogi, but Kajisa reassured everyone. As for Zhao Yu, after such a vigorous discussion, he also concluded that there were some targets that needed to be eliminated to protect Rozan. Takumi and Misaki were shocked to learn that Corpse God's keepsake was an undercover agent, a position that could both monitor criminals and eliminate corrupt officers within the force. In the world of professional chefs, there was someone in a similar position, but he seemed a bit more ruthless. Corpse God and his team were thinking about requesting some information, but were preempted by Hosorogi offering information. Before joining this case, they had to obtain 1 million yen, and Hosorogi would handle the money-making part. The whole team had to fulfill his last wish. This was also a condition of the contract. In return for Hosorogi's cooperation, Corpse God had to help him fulfill his unfinished wish. Out of prison, Solitaire was disguised as a warden to access the information archive of a general store. Here, you could exchange any information as long as you had something of equivalent value. Solitaire wanted to know about the emblem he had collected from criminals burned by Judge Hell. According to the history compiled by the police department, the owner of the general store was a businessman who existed 100 years ago. But in the end, because he engaged in too many dishonest transactions, he was caught. Now this criminal mastermind is the successor of that businessman, with the alias of General Store. The General Store also influences many countries with its information trading skills. But now, Solitaire has nothing to exchange for this valuable information. He just makes small talk with an apple, and only lets the store owner rub oil on his hands when counting money to avoid getting pricked. The General Store mentioned that this symbol is related to playing cards in ancient knights from China to Europe. The time for fooling around is over. To learn more, Solitaire must buy the VIP package or leave. However, the General Store only trades based on the value the customer can bring to him. The price Solitaire has to pay may be tens of thousands of times higher than that of an ordinary person because he is a troublemaker. The symbol that Hosorogi drew for Iwanome is exactly the crest of a fallen kingdom in the world of Corpse God. And now it is floating all over the Japanese sky. This has caused a ripple in some secret group. They demand the removal of the person who first revealed this trick, and that they be exposed to the public, Solitaire. Previously, one of their accomplices was attacked by Triotrong fire. This is the one who tried to destroy the evidence in the safe, but was burned to death before he could do so. For some reason, Solitaire is following and picking up that scroll with the symbol on it. However, killing Solitaire might reveal their secrets like 5 years ago. Iwanome looks up at the sky. He doesn't believe this is a coincidence. On the same day Hosorogi disappeared 5 years ago, a series of symbols were drawn on balloons released into the sky. This show was directed by Solitaire. The sky might also be related to those who killed Hosorogi. He might have spied when Iwanome went to Corpse God for a fortune-telling and overheard something. Is Solitaire trying to convey something? The situation is getting worse. The police investigator came to find Iwanome to settle the score. Solitaire is leisurely enjoying his fame at the top of the balloon. The information he wants to buy is worth 3,000 billion yen, simply because the General Store believes he can earn 6,000 billion yen. The General Store ensures that this information is like a prescription from Solitaire, but if used incorrectly, you will die. However, Solitaire does not agree to the transaction and wants to find the answer himself. Solitaire's clones arranged on the balloon were shot one by one by assassins. But he is not afraid and even broadcasts this news on TV. An organization is trying to cover up this matter. This shows that someone has infiltrated the police force to know his location, because previously only police aircraft could identify which balloon he was on. This symbol definitely has a problem. Solitaire immediately offers a reward to anyone who can provide more information about this symbol. Corpse God assesses the situation as dire, but first he must deal with this niece. His group seems a bit careless in letting Sayoa know all the secrets about reincarnation and past lives, and now they have to explain. In general, Corpse God is a reincarnator defeated by a hero and entered Polka's body, while Polka's real soul is safe. Although it sounds unbelievable, this niece still believes it. Basically, because she guessed wrong, all his words and actions are not like Polka at all. Now, Just needing a moment to calm down, she brought the real shark, not knowing it was hers. To prepare for the worst, Takumi asks the Grim Reaper if he has a memory erasure technique. The soul summoning technique puts a controlled soul into a body. The opponent's soul has a part of its memory removed, causing a chain reaction in the brain. That is not difficult, but for people in this world, I do not know. If not careful, it can destroy them completely, but it is certainly applicable to enemies, especially those scoundrels who were truly insidious and should not have been provoked. However, comparing the two sides, Takumi still feels that Misaki, who always smiles brightly, is more terrifying. Misaki is currently bathing with Sayoa so she can ask who killed Poka. Misaki admits that she was the one who killed Sayoa's pet. She was then asked in return. Sayoa felt guilty about her actions. Therefore, she went looking for someone to scold her. Although Poka forgave her, the feeling did not subside. That is why Misaki wanted to find someone to blame herself. But it's okay. Sayoa forgives Misaki. She won't do anything. Seeing her secret exposed, Misaki admitted to Sayoa that shark lovers are good people. Poka, who had been eavesdropping, pretended not to notice anything. Besides shark lovers, another reason Sayoa forgave Misaki was that she saved Shizuki and Kazuki. Misaki didn't know how to react, so she decided to talk to Sayoa. Takumi heard the story and got angry. This child Sayoa is like a caught criminal. Sayoa felt very wronged. She couldn't understand why they thought she had observed Poka. Because she likes sharks, she will definitely throw Poka to the sharks to eat. There is no need to hire an assassin. The shark Poka is blushing in Sayoa's hands. Takumi found it strange, so he picked it up to examine it. Being a shark is truly difficult. Sayoa now realized it was not an ordinary shark, but her pet. It was too late. She thought about changing clothes, and being seen was very embarrassing, but she still felt excited. She also wanted to become a shark. Otherwise, Corpse God might lend her body to Poka and put her soul into the shark. Sayoa's thoughts changed so quickly that even her pet couldn't keep up, let alone outsiders. Corpse God wanted to meet the group who planned to use that symbol for some dark purpose to talk. That symbol is a precious memento from his old world, and now it's being tarnished, so he can't let it go. Takumi suggested investigating the organization behind it. However, this could also be a trick by Solitaire. That Solitaire couldn't have come from Corpse God's world because he wanted information about that symbol. Based on magic analysis, Corpse God is unsure if there are other reincarnated people. The dice he summoned at that time were also quite surprising. He only used surrounding objects as vessels. What he summoned were souls. He had a lot of souls before coming here, but they were all dispersed. However, there are still people who can communicate with them. For Poka, summoning is a sin. Even when Sayoa consoles him, he doesn't know if his smiles during the ritual to summon those souls can be forgiven. What's important now is how to deal with the symbol. For matters like these, leave the analysis to Priest Takumi. Takumi starts investigating from the police's side first. Hosorogi also lends a hand by giving everyone a little information while also warning everyone. Do what you want, but be careful. The police organization is more terrifying than you think. Iwanome is currently facing a big shot from the police, Director Jotaro. The situation is so tense that Inspector Habaki, who used to guide him on job transfers, had to return. Jotaro looks very intimidating, but Iwanome isn't scared at all. The director wants him to cooperate as a cog with him. Cooperation is his forte, unless there's a wrench in the works between the two of them. For the director, that wrench is Hosorogi. The director understands that you see those street thugs as roadside weeds, but he means those stray dogs who pushed Hosorogi into a dead end. Hearing your answer, Jotaro nods. It turns out this was just a test from him for Iwanome. Today, he called you because he wants you to become a key member of the Solitaire case. Takumi hacked into the police department's data to see what Iwanome was investigating, but unexpectedly, the genius hacker's actions were discovered by Solitaire's subordinate and reported to him. The number of customers coming for readings at the main character's place is increasing. Takumi stayed up all night, studying information about the symbols, but everything is still very vague. The only point worth noting is that at the moment Hosorogi was close to finding the answer, he disappeared without a trace. Hosorogi also recounts the moment he almost caught the mastermind. Someone hired an assassin to kill him in the very building where they were all operating. There is only one possibility. The perpetrator must be someone within the police force to dare to target an inspector like Hosorogi. He only speaks this far, because there is still a lot of information he cannot confirm. Saying too many uncertain things could endanger the safety of the entire group and Polka's family. There was someone in the lower floor who was peeling radishes while eavesdropping on the drama. Xiaoyu also knew there was a problem with the police force, but what he suspected more was the group's conversational style. Occasionally, Corpse God's group would go silent for a few seconds for no reason, and then resume their conversation. Iwanome was summarizing what his team of 3 had gathered for the other police detectives. They needed to investigate the symbol that was causing Solitaire to spread rumors everywhere. Most of them paid attention to the explanation, but there were still some who sneered at Iwanome and Arase's team. At the workplace, Corpse God was still instructing a middle-aged man. In fact, this was Solitaire disguised as this old man to see a fortune teller. All the information was accurate, but Solitaire suspected that the hacker Takumi had informed Corpse God. He was somewhat disappointed that this fortune teller was just a fraud. Seeing that this old man seemed sad, Corpse God offered to answer one of his questions. Solitaire asked about the symbol he was pursuing, for the purpose of earning 300 million to squander, but he guessed that Corpse God couldn't decipher the symbol. However, he didn't expect that the conversation from then on would give him a different perspective on the professional cooking master. Corpse God mentioned the flaws in the symbol that Solitaire was pursuing, and asked Hosorogi to perform as usual. Then came the moment he was shocked, stiff. For a moment, Solitaire thought he had found the truth, but he had to calm down immediately. Because if the fortune teller in front of him belonged to some dark organization, he would hardly keep his meager life. Hosorogi gently reminded Corpse God not to say too much to avoid revealing more information. Of course, with his generous nature, Corpse God couldn't bear to see the symbol he admired being forged. Before Solitaire made a move and left the place that sent chills down his spine, Corpse God gave him one more piece of information. The girl in the wheelchair behind him was very worried about Solitaire's life. This was the second time since the magician Solitaire put on a mask to read fortunes. The professional cooking master had received recognition from one of Japan's greatest talents. Initially, he thought the boy was a liar like himself, but for some reason, the boy knew the identity of the girl in the wheelchair. Another good piece of news is that Solitaire has found the 10 Shadows technique and has also arrived here for reconnaissance. The Iwanome and Arase duo are also having a headache with the mission to track down Solitaire. The symbol he is spreading everywhere is different from the original image, but they cannot publicly share this information. It is highly possible that the enemy is lurking within the police force. Although the deadly duo of Team 3 has too many targets to pursue, they are lucky to be provided with additional manpower. While chatting, 2 irritable policemen caused trouble for Iwanome. The blonde young man is not a rookie, so he immediately retorted by pointing out that these 2 people accepted bribes. One of them angrily grabbed Iwanome's collar and threatened the group leader not to touch their territory. Of course, Iwanome will not easily agree with these provocateurs. The police section chief, defining the violent behavior, Arase tightly gripped his wrist. If it weren't for Iwanome signaling his partner to stop with a cold attitude, someone would have broken an arm. Iwanome's life-threatening partner from the security department has appeared. Some people pushed the difficult old man down, others quickly dislocated the police chief's wrists. With a simple technique, they disarmed the 2 corrupt policemen. The clumsy appearance of the 2 partners stole Iwanome's spotlight at his impressive moment. Mr. Hibaki also arrived to end this confrontation. After hearing the story from Iwanome, Hibaki advised him not to challenge these old men. Recently, the police force's internal affairs have been troubled searching for a traitor within the organization. Hibaki still sides with Iwanome, but he still hopes this young bull will cause more trouble. Therefore, the blonde young man returned to his partners from Team 3, who were waiting outside. He predicted that in this case, other accidents would also be involved. But what Team 3 needs to do is focus on protecting the city and catching the ringleaders of the accidents. Xiao Yu at home was helpless because even the news from Xiao Yu's clan could not find any useful information. Suddenly, he heard the sound of an intruder. Indeed, Solitaire has come to Corpse God's house to confirm a few things. He was rambling and muttering meaningless things as usual. Suddenly, a few knives flew from behind and hit him. He easily used a few playing cards to block the thrown knives. He thought it was Corpse God welcoming him, but it wasn't. From behind the wall was Xiao Yu, an assassin from the Shinoyama clan. Corpse God was sleeping soundly and didn't know what was happening around him at all. Suddenly, Poca discovered that fiery letters were gradually appearing on the wall. The familiar scream of Hua Shaozong echoed again as he was active. The professional corn god was dreaming of the day the empire would be destroyed. Corpse God had decided to help the soldiers, but his attendant stopped him. The restraints holding them back had been broken, and his attendant didn't want to be buried with the people of the empire. She summoned another descendant to protect her acquaintances. The attendant told Corpse God to prepare to leave the capitalists who had exploited them for a long time. Before leaving, she also told Corpse God to cherish the teammates around him. However, this was something he couldn't promise his attendant, because later his loved ones were executed. Due to immense hatred, Corpse God accidentally caused many temple soldiers to die. As Corpse God wandered aimlessly, he met his best friend again. I woke up from my dream thanks to Poca slapping me in the face. I discovered Hua Shaozong's message left on the adjacent wall. Before I could investigate, I was called by Hua Shaozong himself. He intentionally asked if Corpse God was a product of Sabarimond. As soon as I heard this term, I changed my childish voice to a cold one. On the rooftop, Solitaire was also saying crazy things to probe who this brat was. Zhao Yu coldly approached and slashed Solitaire twice, but he dodged. Solitaire boasted that he had dodged the previous attacks, and Zhao Yu's hands turned into long knives. Takeru's group also discovered the tension surrounding Corpse God's house with a genius like him. Takeru was the profiteer in this conflict. Huatu Truong's fragmented conversation was very confusing. He felt sorry for Poca. It was truly cruel that even a child like him was dragged into this. Corpse God asked about Sabarimond. Is this person from his own world? Huatu Truong didn't know what he was talking about. Corpse God felt like he was feigning innocence. He couldn't communicate with this person. The text on the wall had just started burning, so I had to use my strength to check the surroundings. I couldn't find Huatu Truong, but I saw Solitaire and Zhao Yu fighting fiercely on the stage. Solitaire was extremely excited. This boy has the potential to become a sorcerer. Xiao Yu wanted to probe Solitaire's intentions. He wanted to know why he came looking for Polka, friend or foe. Speak quickly before he made a judgment. Clearly, this person was not from the Xiao Yu clan, but Xiao Yu couldn't keep up with his speed. Xiao Yu played a psychological game by mentioning Hosorogi's name. Although he didn't know who it was, Solitaire responded by pretending to know. He said Hosorogi had helped him with something, so he came to thank him, but unexpectedly dug his own grave, a criminal known to a police detective. Xiao Yu immediately realized this person was lying. Regardless of whether this person was an enemy of his master, Xiao Yu would go in and deal with him first, then force him to admit the truth later. Solitaire was also ready to fight back. Unexpectedly, at the critical moment, a lemming appeared, blocking the way. Lemmings fell from the sky, making everyone gasp in horror. Lemmings are monsters with unclear physical forms that the Xiao Yu clan strictly prohibits touching. Xiao Yu immediately became vigilant and retreated. Is this person on Solitaire's side? Just as he was planning to escape from this place, someone suddenly appeared. Solitaire immediately boasted that this was his trick. Seeing Lemmings heading towards Zhao Yu, he tried to persuade Lemmings not to touch Zhao Yu, but he talked too much and made himself a target. Lemmings are Takeru's henchmen. No one in the clan knows about the existence of Lemmings or the assassins under Takeru. Takeru would certainly not harm Xiao Yu, a member of the Shinoyama clan. However, that condescending attitude made Xiao Yu feel insulted. He continuously attacked Lemmings, who ignored him and rushed into Solitaire, piling up against the wall. Xiao Yu decided to deal with both. On the lower floor, a strange girl in a raincoat related to Firelord was stopped by the police. It's dangerous to have children on the road at this hour. The sudden phone cut off confused Corpse God. However, fragmented information about the old world he lived in worried him greatly. Corpse God couldn't afford to miss any clues. In the old world, he was the one stained like a stain, and important people were irreplaceable to him. It was taboo to tarnish them. What he needed to do now was to control the situation. Corpse God immediately used magic to join the battle. In Corpse God's old world, Master Yona was talking with her friend Elise. Looking at the ruins of the Empire from 100 years ago, the Master remembered that foolish disciple. Perhaps after all this time, he was still a child. Elise thought Corpse God was usually a very obedient child, only different on the battlefield, but Yona disagreed. That child was not obedient at all. That disciple surpassed her in one aspect: the ability to empathize, trust, and entrust everything to his teammates. He had the ability to synchronize with the dead, which was why, even when he was treated unfairly, he didn't care. Only when his sanctuary was violated did he completely lose control. For example, right now, Corpse God was using magic to observe and analyze the surrounding situation. His power was greater than ever. The girl in the raincoat was stopped by the police and is being interrogated. She said she was looking for her lost dog with her father. It ran up this building, and she wore a raincoat because she didn't want her clothes to get dirty. A man who claimed to be her father suddenly appeared and took her away. I observed everything and realized the girl was lying. I couldn't sense the presence of any dog in the building. The sole color of that girl and the person confronting lemmings on the rooftop seemed very familiar to me. Both came to seek divination and ask questions about the same thing. I decided to expand my powers network throughout the entire neighborhood. This is an intrusion from another world. The sorcerer just needs to mix the air from another world around them, or in a confined space to create a similar atmosphere. For those without sight, this feeling is extremely subtle, but just spending time in the ritual will cause hallucinations, disorientation, and dizziness. I have trained to the point where I can now encompass my power over the entire city. Everyone can feel the subtle change in the surrounding atmosphere. I move up to the rooftop. Although I didn't want to confront lemmings directly, I decided to deploy an invisible hand to assist Xiao Yu. Taking advantage of everyone's distraction due to the changing atmosphere, Solitaire launched an attack towards lemmings. However, before the playing cards reached their target, they were crushed mid-air. Lemmings were stopped by my invisible hand, tearing his clothes. Solitaire saw that the situation was not good. The only choice was to escape. Even his escape was grand and ostentatious. I created a giant invisible hand to attack both lemmings and Solitaire. However, both were agile enough to dodge and escape. The strange girl in the raincoat was also caught. Lemmings jumped up, wanting to grab Solitaire to give him a beating, but ended up only grabbing the corner of his clothes. Solitaire used a hot air balloon to fly straight into the sky, to everyone's surprise. The giant hand I summoned was spotted by Takaru's subordinate and recorded to show him. This caused confusion among the public as a mysterious event. Some people even wanted to seize that power to bring them to glory. Takumi was drinking water while watching a stream of beautiful girls. He also noticed this girl approaching the group's workplace. Surprisingly, this cosplay girl accidentally filmed the corpse god's hand from the building's rooftop. Takumi accidentally choked on his drink when he saw this. As expected, the next morning, the corpse god group's headquarters was no different from a marketplace. Police and citizens were all present to witness the chaos. Iwanome is in a difficult situation because the building's owner is Kajisa, whom he least wants to cause trouble with. At this critical moment, two assassins ready to go to Solitaire also flocked to Kajisa to ask for work. Although they just failed an important mission that left them unemployed, this pair is still quite strong. Jen accidentally criticized Kajisa's age and was immediately suppressed by the girl's subordinates. Watching the girl struggle to escape King Kong's grasp made everyone think she was really cute. Therefore, Kajisa agreed to let them work for him because everything would soon become very busy. In just one night, Corpse God's peaceful life that he longed for drifted away, never to return. He is being interrogated by the hero's pawn and the drug addict about his reckless actions last night. Some citizens have begun to believe that these phenomena are not Photoshop. Corpse God guesses that both Lemmings and Solitaire know his strength, but with Xiao Yu, he is not sure. In fact, Xiao Yu is trying to call Rozan to ask about this matter. Another important piece of information is that Solitaire has come here to ask Corpse God for a fortune-telling. Her soul color, along with the guardian spirit of the girl in the wheelchair, cannot be mistaken. As for the girl with orange hair wearing a raincoat, they still haven't seen any loopholes from her or her father. Hearing this, Takumi thought of that father with the legendary sugar daddy, but explaining this to Corpse God would take half a day. Therefore, they continued to discuss. Takumi cannot guess why the demons, including Hua Tuotruong, are gathered here. Moreover, they are saying crazy things that make Corpse God lose control. The name Sabaramond, mentioned by Hua Tuotruong, is the strongest royal mage of the Corpse God Empire. Remembering the early days of his career, Corpse God was criticized by his mentor for lacking magical talent. The only thing he had was the demon eye and a talented teacher like her. Corpse God was very ambitious at the time, so he wanted to climb to the highest position of the royal mages. But when he saw Sabaramond appear before him, his smile disappeared, and behind that were tears. In Corpse God's world, Sabaramond is no different from a king, both powerful and influential. They are all top mages, so Sabaramond living for another 200 to 300 years is completely normal. And he doesn't want anyone to tarnish his precious past. He pledged to his society that he would not allow any mistakes in this matter. Like the Hosorugi investigation case, his entire group is operating under the protection of Sabarimond, with whom Corpse God has just shared his history with his teammates. Beneath the earth, a terrorist group is preparing to rise to the surface to make a name for themselves. Their motto is to turn themselves into bullets to pierce the heart. But before they could make it onto television, they were easily beheaded by a killer named Mama Roba. He sat on the corpses of the terrorists, chatting with his teammate on the other side who had just sent another group to heaven. Both he and his teammates escaped the mission without a scratch. Mama Roba's next mission is in Shinjuku City with his idol, Solitaire. Finally, Xiaoyu managed to call Rozan and constantly told him about Polka's abilities. Rozan replied calmly, "Did the professional chef touch even a single hair of the unborn child? If not, why are you twisting things like this?" From the beginning, Rozan knew everything, but if he revealed it to the knight, he would surely cause trouble. Xiaoyu was stunned to understand why Rozan had asked him to protect and trust Polka. Rozan himself trusted the person who saved his child. Therefore, he advised Ryu to go and ask Polka directly. And if Corpse God refused to tell the truth, he himself would turn his head 180 degrees to apologize to the protagonist. Mama Roba recognized the child Xiaoyu from afar, whom he had once asked for his limbs. He greatly admired the stubbornness of the Xiaoyu clan. Arase, who was guarding the base of the Corpse God group, also recognized a familiar face. "I was annoyed that I accidentally harmed my brothers, so Misaki ran in. She helped me make a comical face. She had just brought a famous reporter up here. This reporter's nickname is Kacho, a name that makes Takumi shiver when he hears it. This reporter is one of the top journalists. She possesses a series of extremely strong scoops ranging from politics to young idols. She is one of the people the Corpse God group is most afraid of. And fortunately, Misaki brought this person to their lair. From the start, I showed Kacho that I am a true criminal. Fortunately, Takumi managed to fix the situation for me this time. But Kacho is not someone to be easily intimidated. When she counters Takumi's threat of spy drones taking clandestine photos, Takumi sensed that this girl came to expose the informant and the fortune teller working together. This is a battle of wits between two old foxes in their respective fields. What Kacho knows about Takumi is that he used to be a prodigy. He built an entire software company at the age of 14. Unfortunately, the company was snatched away by some ruthless competitors. They even forced Takumi's family to voluntarily withdraw. Regarding the opportunity to come here to report, Kacho put in a lot of effort to persuade the editor-in-chief. She also pointed out a lot of evidence that accidents have recently visited Corpse God's place. The protagonist only agreed to let Kacho interview him about fortune-telling. But to maintain objectivity, she would ask a neighbor to have their fortune told while she observed. Takumi instructed Kacho not to touch on information about other clients. With his experience in the profession, Kacho guessed that Solitaire had a close relationship with Corpse God. There were many other suspicions, including Hua Xiaokun's fingerprints behind them. Suddenly, Kacho became worried because there was too much information around her. She tried to extract information about Hua Xiaokun's handwriting, but fortunately, Sayo managed to shut Misaki up in time. As for Takumi, he skillfully declared that these things had happened before. But how could Kacho believe that? The traces were still very fresh. Lemmings successfully escaped to report to Takeru. The one-eyed man ordered Lemmings to stop for a while because many organizations were starting to get into trouble. Takeru assigned his subordinate to monitor Solitaire in cooperation with the Xiaoyu clan to surround and capture Solitaire. The game-addicted guy hiding in the corner will be tasked with investigating the information. They need to be very careful with the police because those people are the real monsters. The police chief has also started paying attention to Takeru's actions. Kajisa excitedly reported to the chief editor that there would soon be a lot of hot news. Indeed, Mama Roba had captured the subordinate Nishida, an employee of Kajisa, to shoot a morning broadcast. Kajisa was still leisurely enjoying wine with his employees. Nishida took a day off today without notice, making it difficult for his colleagues to cover his shift. Kajisa comforted his employees, promising them a bonus at the end of the month, then went upstairs to check on his loyal subordinates and visit Nishida's home. She had a premonition that something bad had happened. Therefore, she instructed everyone to go in a large group. It seemed like a police officer in Shinjuku was a spy. He was a Shibuya promoter who had conspired with Mama Roba to kill Nishida. Unbeknownst to him, what Solitaire said was accurate. Now it seems like there's no point in looking for the police. After eliminating Nishida, Mama Roba meticulously cleaned up the crime scene, leaving no trace. Recently, Iwanome has been racking his brain to find Solitaire's clues. He has to check every camera feed, which gives him a headache. Iwanome suddenly discovered a very tall man, possibly over 2 meters tall. To this day, he still doesn't understand why he came to the building where Poka lives. Could he get any information from Poka? While watching the surveillance camera, Yoshida discovered an extremely tall young man. Isn't that Mamoruba? But the person next to him is actually an acquaintance of Arase. He is involved in a case that Arase has cracked before, and is definitely related to Solitaire's case in some way. Arase had previously cracked down on a gang called the Tamdu Children, a gang that Takumi was also a member of. He let one person who was considered the leader of that group escape. Higurashi is the one currently accompanying Mamoruba. They were on their way to hide a corpse when they were stopped by some street thugs who intended to rob them. Higurashi was suffocated and assaulted by these thugs. However, there was no panic in his eyes. Instead, he asked them if they had any relationships, then lectured them about love, friendship, and family. The thugs found this man's rambling nonsensical and decided to kill him. They don't know that this is like bringing a knife to a gunfight. Higurashi fed them a few pills, killing them on the spot. An acquaintance of someone Higurashi once dealt with had a significant influence, to the point that his organization was destroyed. Mamoruba laments that someone like that is still roaming free in society. It's no wonder the world is in chaos, but that's about to end. After dying, Nishida's soul still followed the familiar path to his workplace. He met his best friend Udai at a bar. But strangely, no matter how hard he tried to call out, Udai didn't respond or see him. That's when Nishida realized he had been decapitated and was dead. Udai followed his older sister Kacho to Corpse God's place to get his fortune told. This was because his sister said she had a small part-time job, so he went just to get his fortune told. Takumi looked through the camera with a headache. This guy is an acquaintance of the attendant Kajisa. What is he doing here? Udai observed everyone's attitude with a mild expression, but it seemed no one remembered him, which was a bit hurtful, but not a big deal. Udai really wanted to complain about his job, but was afraid of being hanged and beheaded, so he changed the subject. Since this morning, his shoulder has been inexplicably aching. Udai also asked about the whereabouts of Nishida, his missing colleague. It seems Corpse God also understood why Nishida disappeared. Nishida was as important to him as family. According to the investigation by Kajisa's group, it seems Nishida disappeared in some building. Indeed, Corpse God saw Nishida's soul following Udai. Nishida wanted him to tell Udai that he had been murdered by someone. Corpse God told Udai that his friend seemed to have gotten into some trouble, to put it as gently as possible. Suddenly, the police stormed Kajisa's place. They wanted to confirm if Nishida was an employee of her establishment. Suddenly, Kajisa realized this method was exactly like the Hosorogi incident 5 years ago. Xiaoyu was still wondering how to start talking to Corpse God. Just back from shopping, he encountered Iwanome's group standing in front of the house. Iwanome is about to ask Poka about the Solitaire case. But before he could, someone else beat him to it. Police from HQ. Last night, a serious street murder occurred. The suspect is believed to be hiding in this building, and the higher-ups have ordered an immediate investigation. He is an employee at a nearby bar. Mamoruba and Higurashi are observing everything. The police barge in while Corpse God's group is having their fortune told. They want to investigate the building and ask for cooperation. Hosorogi reminds Corpse God that he has a hunch about the building's basement, similar to how he was killed there 5 years ago. Indeed, Corpse God used magic and discovered Nishida's corpse down there. If the police find that, their peaceful lives will end. Hearing Corpse God call the dead a thing, Hosorogi realizes that apart from acquaintances and children, he is an extremely cold person. That's because he doesn't want to overestimate or underestimate his own abilities, so he has set a limit. Otherwise, he would easily lose everything. Corpse God doesn't deny this. It's just that looking at the screaming soul, he feels his hands can reach further. The police go down to the basement to investigate, but there's nothing there. They think the suspect has escaped. Corpse God summons stone dogs to move the corpse. In this building, there's a secret passage. He found it before, but didn't use it, so he didn't pay attention. But through this incident, he realizes someone is trying to frame this building. Whether the target is his group or the owner of this building is unclear. Iwanome and Arase are about to leave but hesitate because of Kacho. The case the HQ is involved in makes them suspicious. The feeling is like one of Solitaire's tricks, but this detail is exactly like the case 5 years ago. Iwanome also received an anonymous tip to this build, but apart from Hosoroji's bloodstains, there is nothing else. If Arase is truly involved in this case, Higurashi needs to act more cautiously. He will not repeat the mistakes of the past. Xiaoyu was violated by Tapo. Although no longer related to the Xiaoyu clan, he was ordered by the sect to try to complete the mission of being a ferryman for his mistress, then die. No longer related to the clan, he is like a roadside weed. Masaki saw that the situation seemed tense, so she came to rescue him. Masaki gave Tapo a piece of advice. There are many people here, so he should be careful. Indeed, Shinjuku is very complicated with all sorts of people. Mamoruba thought it would be boring here, but now he is having quite a lot of fun. Kacho, in the editorial department, is being scolded by the editor-in-chief. The corpse god case she is following has become too dangerous. The editor-in-chief wanted her to withdraw from this case to save her life. Of course, Kacho did not agree. The editor-in-chief had to give in and let her continue working. However, she was only allowed to collect news on puzzle issues. Finally, Sayoa asked Xiaoyu to collect rough stones to help the protagonist increase his strength. This is also considered a favor for having replaced her closest friend. Xiaoyu, who was eavesdropping, suddenly lost track of the conversation. Why is this masked man the benefactor of Rosen's proud son, and Takumi is still trying to deal with Nishida's corpse? The mysterious disappearance of his colleague will trouble the young Udai for many days to come. Only now did Corpse God know that Udai was Kajisa's subordinate. While they were discussing enthusiastically, Takumi suddenly had to leave in a hurry. Even at this hour, the pair, cursed by the Life Safety Department, still came to visit. Iwanome went straight to Corpse God to ask why Solitaire came here. This is quite desperate, so he directly asked the protagonist how to contact the benefactor Hosorogi. Corpse God was annoyed with Iwanome because he dared not believe in her puzzle-solving skills. The protagonist knows Iwanome is eager, but revealing his secrets to too many people one day could become a double-edged sword that Corpse God cannot control. Corpse God followed Hosorogi's advice and still asked the blonde-haired man to return to studying the documents from before. As for Takumi, thinking he had escaped Iwanome and Arase's squad, he would be safe from trouble. But things didn't go as planned. As soon as he heard the doorbell, Takumi saw his friend Higurashi waiting outside. Before he could say anything, Mamoruba placed his sword at Takumi's throat. Takumi was captured and about to end his life with his former teammate. Higurashi took out some needles and investigated how far Takumi had investigated Nishida's case. The first needle was inserted into Takumi's thigh. Making the opponent feel pain is the easiest way to extract accurate information. The next needle was inserted into Takumi's thigh, causing him to writhe in pain. King Higurashi knew that pain was Takumi's biggest weakness. Therefore, he inserted another needle to ensure he could extract information about Kajisa. Unexpectedly, Masaki broke the glass to save him. Kajisa's teammate warned Masaki upon seeing Takumi in danger. With her game-hacking abilities, Masaki temporarily pushed back Mamoruba. The two sides continuously fought until Mamoruba decided to counterattack. With 20 years of experience, Masaki easily jumped into the air to dodge, but everything was within his calculations. He dodged Masaki's lightning-fast strike and sliced her in two. The gruesome scene made the cowardly Higurashi seize the opportunity to inject an anesthetic and take Takumi elsewhere. Before leaving, he reported this matter to someone and gently mentioned the name Sabaramond. But Masaki's fate was not over because Corpse God upgraded her species with a gem from an undead. She has now become a vampire. And this is how the protagonist protects her teammates from disasters. Xiaoyu was also tracking the car, waiting for Takumi to leave. Meanwhile, Masaki had fully recovered and jumped straight onto Higurashi's car. 10 years ago, Kajisa once tried to bring a smile to poor Masaki, who had just lost her family. Masaki recalled the moment Rima attacked her parents' car while smiling widely like a poison-spewing toad. Since then, harvesting the heads of criminals with a bright smile has become her trademark. However, as soon as she clung to the car's body, Mamoruba pierced through it, causing Masaki to lose her balance. She immediately spread her wings and glided alongside Higurashi's car in excitement. Finally, Masaki found joy in saving people instead of slicing someone. Takumi is interrogated again. This time, he is even more surprised that the tall man in front of him is a member of the Akaza clan. This is one of the most dangerous assassin clans that everyone must avoid. Higurashi also knows about the assassin from the Xiaoyu clan, living with Corpse God's group, Who else but Xiao Yu? The one being referred to is observing the situation from above. Xiao Yu actually just happened to come to Takumi's house to plant a listening device to gather information about Nishida's corpse. He didn't expect to have the opportunity to confront the person who once demanded his limbs. Below, Takumi is continuously mentally tormented. Higurashi knows his friend was once a good person, but after being deceived many times, he put on a fake mask to escape his miserable life. Theory is enough. Now it's time for Higurashi to smash into Takumi's head. Kajisa at the bar is certain that her brother has been taken, but she is not worried about Takumi revealing the organization's secret. Now he has something more important to protect than his own life. Indeed, even though he was shot in the leg and subjected to Higurashi's taunts, Takumi was determined not to say a word. Sooner or later, he will be resurrected by Corpse God into some kind of creature. Takumi's stubbornness surprised Higurashi. He had to change tactics by pouring soy sauce into his friend's wound, then using a screwdriver to twist it several times. But there was no way to pry Takumi's mouth open. His mistake was mentioning that he would take Sayoa hostage if he accidentally killed Takumi. And so Xiao Yu was forced to save the pawn and challenge those who dared to harm the Shinoyama clan. Iwanome and Arase are also reporting to Hibaki about their visit to Corpse God to investigate. He promised not to cause trouble because Arase was with him. Solitaire is now meeting with Police Chief Taku. He announced that he was about to expose the true face of the local police at the warehouse where Takumi was just saved from Higurashi's fangs by the divine Xiao Yu. He still can't believe that Xiao Yu is a member of the notorious assassin clan Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu rushed at Mamoruba and continuously whipped him with the steel whips from his two robot arms. These childish tricks can be easily blocked by Mamoruba. Mamoruba's older sister is the one who turned Xiao Yu from a normal person into a transforming robot. Mamoruba's clan has long been taught the assassination techniques of the Xiao Yu clan like a textbook. Mamoruba thought Xiao Yu was trembling, but in reality he was concentrating his power into his legs. In an instant, Xiao Yu moved at the speed of light behind Mamoruba, but the monster still had time to react. Xiao Yu had to fly up and extinguish all the lights to reduce Mamoruba's vision partly. However, in the dark, he could still resist the speed like lightning of his opponent. At the moment he was most distracted, Xiao Yu shone light into his eyes, temporarily blinding him. These tricks would not be enough to defeat Mamoruba. Otherwise, Xiao Yu would not have been suppressed by his family to the point of using tricks. He was cornered and then stomped by Mamoruba and thrown into the air. In just another second, he would have body parts requested by the Akaza clan for the second time. Suddenly, a familiar laugh echoed. Mamoruba was kicked into the wall. Misaki had to observe whether Xiao Yu was an ally or an enemy before saving him. Higurashi, who was laughing while watching the battle, began to feel a chill down her spine. Obviously, this idiot was just cut in half by Mamoruba. Yet she was standing there as if nothing happened. Mamoruba quickly got up, adjusted her skirt to prepare for a close-range battle. In an instant, he had already cut Xiao Yu's abdomen with his sword. Misaki, as reckless as ever, rushed in to fight the monster hand-to-hand. Feeling that this opponent was a bit difficult to handle, Misaki turned to Xiao Yu to propose cooperation. There was something Mamoruba found hard to understand. Logically, his attacks should have already created several cuts on her abdomen. Even Xiao Yu couldn't feel the heartbeat of his reckless ally. It was thanks to Corpse God who had just granted her power, allowing Misaki to have the ability to revive and turn her body into drops of water. Both joined forces to fight against Mamoruba. He was a dangerous person because he could create illusions with his martial arts. Misaki, driven by her competitive spirit, also wanted to test the limits of her attack range like her opponent. Therefore, she launched her club with a secondary arm. The attack was so sudden that it was enough to create a large wound on Mamoruba's body. At home, Hosorogi unexpectedly tapped on Corpse God's head to ask him to do something. At the police station, Solitaire was still trying to confuse Taku, but his expression remained unchanged. Iwanome, while analyzing clues with Aras, was interrupted by a phone call. He picked it up and heard a very strange voice, but Hosorogi's mannerisms were unmistakable. Kacho was also investigating the events around the Corpse God's building. Somehow, she accidentally found information about Mr. Kajisa, who was also the owner of the building. Above all, she had once been entangled in a kidnapping case. Fortunately, she was rescued by Inspector Hosorogi and returned. Iwanome still couldn't believe he was hearing the voice of his beloved predecessor again. It was all thanks to Corpse God lending Hosorogi a pigeon's body to talk. He tried to explain his current situation, but how could Iwanome imagine this scenario? The main purpose of Hosorogi calling his subordinate was to explain the notice he had warned about. The enemy had previously taken his life and would act again. The person he had put on the suspect list before dying was someone from the police force. Upon hearing this shocking news, Iwanome still couldn't believe it was the truth. Meanwhile, Solitaire was still interrogating the person he believed to be a traitor within the police force. Actually, Taku couldn't understand why Solitaire suspected someone like him to be a traitor. Indeed, because he didn't think anything, and only came to coincidentally ask a big figure like the police chief. Masaki's troops and the assassin Xiao Yu had just finished discussing their strategy. Masaki was assigned to counter Mamoruba. The skill of a top assassin allowed him to quickly grab Masaki. Just as he was celebrating, Masaki detached his body, allowing Xiao Yu to land several fatal blows on Mamoruba. He even took extra care to ensure the enemy was completely dead. Takumi suddenly remembered that the Rabbit King Higurashi had disappeared from this place. He noticed the smell of trouble and ran straight to the subway, leaving his comrade behind. He had to report the strange things he had witnessed to someone. Hosorogi instructed Iwanome not to trust anyone in the police force, not even his close colleagues. Hearing all the information from his informant somewhat relieved Iwanome, as he believed Hosorogi was still alive. As soon as he hung up, Iwanome still spoke to Arrays about the internal corruption. He was still willing to trust the members of the special task force under him to the end. While they were talking, Solitaire called. Somehow, he already knew about their recent phone call. The culprit was none other than Elder Hibaki, whom Iwanome had always considered his benefactor. The song of Hua Xiaozhong also echoed throughout the police station, signaling his presence there as well. Mamoruba's older sister also began to act to save her beloved younger brother. Solitaire had just had a friendly chat with the police chief, and by extension he had also overheard the chief's conversation with the general store. The police chief had asked the general store to record all phone calls in the police station, including Iwanome's call and Hibaki's call with the broker in Shibuya. The police chief had anticipated everything, but except for Hosorogi, the chief had given Solitaire the information he wanted. How he used that information was up to him. In addition, he also requested Iwanome's phone number, which explained why he could call and summon Iwanome at any time. Iwanome wanted to question Hibaki further, but suddenly some police officers seemed bewitched, gathered towards them, and fiery characters began to appear on the wall. They appeared not only at Iwanome's location, but also where Misaki and Xiao Yu were. The characters kept singing a song that sounded like a funeral dirge. Mamoruba's older sister suddenly appeared, likely because she had called the child many times without a response. Maria said a few words, and the men in raincoats parted to let her pass. There was no need to act against them, because even if she crushed them, she could not eliminate them all. They targeted Hibaki with intense hatred. Solitaire revealed to the police chief about Hua Xiaozhong. Hua Xiaozhong was a person, but also not a person, like a ghost or someone with superpowers. Iwanome realized something was wrong, and quickly told Ares to get a fire extinguisher. It seemed these fire wizards shot something similar to a laser at one point to make it combust, including the words on the wall. It's unclear how they did it, but there must be a way. Nothing is impossible. Were all the enemies Iwanome faced before a denial of the impossible? The real monster is probably coming. Takumi wanted to leave quickly. Xiao Yu sensed something approaching, possibly an enemy. Sister Maria suddenly appeared behind Xiao Yu and swiftly cut off his artificial arm. She severed his limbs years ago and said if he became her brother, she would return them. His first mission should have been a simple one, but that little demon was also targeted by someone else. What he needed to do was kill the people in the building. Unfortunately, Maria was already there, and by the time he realized it, his limbs were gone. She even saved him from dying. If you find the Shinoyama clan too easy, you should come to me. She really wants a brother like him. Maria has not given up on her intentions. Although Xiao Yu swore allegiance to the Shinoyama clan, thinking Xiao Yu was the one who defeated Mamoruba, Maria was surprised to see Misaki right above her. Misaki lunged and slapped her. Unexpectedly, Maria used her teeth to block. Maria cut Misaki in half, but of course it had no effect. They both got acquainted after that greeting. The older sister was impressed by the previous technique and desperately recruited Sister Misaki, but unfortunately, playing like this would kill Brother Mamoruba. The three quickly recovered Mamoruba and left. Misaki's group decided to let them go. Hibaki used some kind of powder and completely transformed. His strength also became overwhelming, pushing Iwanome away with just one blow. According to him, in just a short while, that person will overcome the obstacle. On one side is Habaki, who is addicted. On the other side are the manipulated police officers. Both are trapped in a dangerous situation. I'm still at home, waiting for Takumi to return. Lightning continues to strike the sky. In my world, the magic of the soul cannot be used. It is no different from suicide. However, there are still geniuses who have succeeded. On the rooftop of some building, someone is standing in the rain to absorb the soul's power. The way he speaks indicates he knows something about the old world of Corpse God, and knows a lot. Habaki was the one who always helped and guided Iwanome since the beginning of his career. He is a father who lost his daughter. Therefore, he always tried to live. But now this person stands before him with a completely different attitude. Crazy and dark, but turns out it was all a lie. He lost his daughter to gain his current position. Just then, Yoshida arrived and saved the two of them. Yoshida noticed a suspicious policeman and summoned the Special Mission Team 3. Habaki is a suspect in the Hosorogi case, but he mutters about something else. He talked to someone from beginning to end, and then the lights suddenly went out. Habaki rushed to grapple with Iwanome's group. As they were about to subdue him, a policeman suddenly appeared with a glowing sword pointed at Yoshida. After helping Habaki escape, he used the sword to end his life, and the lights came back on. Everyone who seemed drowsy a moment ago has now woken up. This scene reminds Iwanome of something he thought was an illusion, but who would have thought it was real? Hua Thiu Truong is a person, but also not a person. He is a hypnotist with superhuman abilities. The police split into two groups to search for Habaki. Habaki is now on the rooftop and meets a person he calls the Master, the leader of the Sabarimond organization. We are very grateful for your efforts. Habaki has contributed a lot to the organization, even using his daughter as an experimental subject. We believe our daughter will be very happy in the afterlife, but the leader's intention is not to thank you. We plan to abandon you. However, someone wants to meet you again. The afterlife is for the dead, but your daughter is not dead. She is still alive and well. The girl was extremely distressed and sent her heartless father flying away. To be precise, the girl was merely a bastard child, and Habaki only wanted to get rid of her to clear his debt. Sora, now called Ya, was the sole survivor of those experiments. She requested the commander, Habaki, to allow her to personally execute the father who had abandoned her. She now held a higher position than him. Nothing in this world could compare to what she had endured over the past 10 years. She once thought she would forgive him if he visited her just once. Who knew he would be so cold-blooded? At that moment, Habaki was killed by an assassin. The commander permitted Sora to do whatever she wished. Without hesitation, she jumped to the building where the assassin was. The two assassin brothers tried to escape, but it was too late. They tried to shoot Sora, but she dodged every bullet and even broke their swords. Fortunately, the two brothers had someone to save them. Kajisa had foreseen this. The two were drawn into the battle. Sora didn't notice that her abusive owner had already slipped away. Kajisa is now at Corpse God's place to inquire about the news. She warned him to be careful. If the person who killed him knew about Corpse God, there would surely be big trouble. Through surveillance, Takeru knew that Corpse God and Sayoa were approaching Kajisa. He signaled Tapo to follow, but not to act. Only when a fight breaks out should he intervene. Kajisa wanted to give him some work, so she wanted Corpse God to go with her. Sayoa would stay home and be protected. Iwanome is reporting the incident to the police chief. The police force had been in chaos all day. The police chief had long suspected Habaki 5 years ago when they were preparing to corner him. All evidence had mysteriously disappeared. Kajisa and Corpse God went up to the rooftop to talk. He used a bit of magic so that only those on the rooftop could see the spirit of the recently deceased. Who else but Habaki? Kajisa had a formal conversation with him. It turned out that in the past, he had conspired for everyone to think that she and Hosorogi had killed each other. Kajisa had completely erased his body. Hosorogi did not expect Habaki to have died. The damn girl ruined his plan, but he absolutely refused to reveal who was behind it all. I had to intervene, using a technique to guide his inner thoughts until he confessed. He admitted to giving his stepchild to Sabarimond. Habaki called me a sorcerer behind this mess. It seems the leader is looking for me. Habaki's skills were transferred to my mind. Hosorogi also saw them intertwined with my scattered memories of a father who brought me only for money and medicine. I decided to follow my instincts to extract information from this desperate man. Back then, if not for the help of a priest, I wouldn't have kept my soul. I wouldn't have continued living. Fortunately, I still had a friend by my side for comfort. Just as I was about to step on Habaki, a hand suddenly stopped me. It was he who I considered my closest friend. After the recent turmoil, Iwanome held a meeting with his team. The media seemed to have been bribed, so they needed to limit contact. Iwanome wanted to capture Habaki before he escaped the country, but they didn't know he had been tragically killed. Corpse God's closest friend suddenly appeared. Corpse God seemed to have broken his chains from 100 years ago. Since he appeared voluntarily, he would soon disappear. His friend did not think of revenge, but that did not mean he had given up hatred to become a saint. That year, he replaced Corpse God to deal with his hatred, to keep his hands clean. This time was the same. The crushing of Habaki was entrusted to him. After finishing the job for Corpse God, he disappeared. Corpse God wanted to create a peaceful world where he would not have to soil himself. That is why he had to go deeper. Higurashi was running, but unfortunately he was surrounded by the minions of the great demon lord. Misaki's group returned home, and Xiaoyu was being treated with ice packs by Sayoa. Sayoa knew he carried a secret. She also knew he always protected everyone and embraced him. Kajisa called to check on Takumi. She even had Kazumi prepare medicine and treat him. Takumi really didn't want to. Looking at that horrific scene, who would want to? But in the end he was forced, truly fearing for his life. I'm curious about Kajisa and Habaki's story. She came to find Habaki because she hacked into the police's internal network. Someone helped her put a GPS on the target. It was the first boss, Toa. He helped her because this case might go beyond his reach. He wanted the team to keep going until they were all grown up. Iwanome instructed everyone to investigate the people Habaki met. He wanted to ask Hosorogi for help. They needed to uncover the secrets of each confidential case. I asked Kajisa if she wanted to say anything to Hosorogi if I found his soul. Her current form is a responsible agent for him. He certainly wouldn't like that. But she has no regrets. She's satisfied with her current self. Therefore, if he returns, she can only say goodbye. Iwanome, on the other hand, wants to continue to accompany and work with Hosorogi. Higureshi was taken to a strange place. In front of him was Solitaire. Takumi was undergoing treatment. Seeing this, Corpse God became more determined to delve deeper into this world to bring a peaceful life to everyone. That was the only way. Solitaire confronted Higurashi and General of the Fire Department. The General of the Fire Department had always tried to burn those related to the Subarmund organization. But this method was increasingly restricted. Therefore, the General of the Fire Department wanted to use Solitaire, who had exposed Habaki. Thinking this Solitaire was just a third-rate wizard who knew he also had a brain. Higurashi wanted to be released because he didn't understand anything. Solitaire felt this guy had killed about a dozen people, so he wouldn't release him anytime soon. News of Misaki's team returning injured reached Takeru. It seems their opponent is not an ordinary enemy. Their opponent has gradually increased their influence over them. Since afternoon, some soldiers have been continuously attacked unexpectedly, and their phones stolen. Xiaoyu called to report to the old man about what he had done and his injuries. One of his arms was completely lost. I suggested fixing his arm, but Xiaoyu seemed resistant, not wanting to trust me. I had no choice but to explain everything to him. But before that, they will fight. Your opponent is not me, but a two-fanged tiger. Xiaoyu's battle was broadcast live to the old man. If I were to reveal the secret to Xiaoyu, my peaceful life would be further away. I stopped the fight, but the two tigers seemed to really like Xiaoyu, licking him until he was soaked. Xiaoyu took a bath and then showed me the joints of his prosthetic arm. Who would have known that his recent fight was to adjust his new arm? I chanted to create a new arm for Xiaoyu from the right arm of the dragon. In return for this arm, I want Xiaoyu to become my ally. I have had a 200-year contract with the dragon for a very long time. The dragon's body I obtained can be combined with weapons or used to make medicine. For Xiaoyu, I have connected his fate with the dragon. Sayoa is chatting with Takumi to kill time. She wants to find out how Misaki deviated from the original vampire to discover the advantages and disadvantages of her body. I trust Xiaoyu, that's why I entrusted the dragon to him. Therefore, I also hope Xiaoyu will become my ally. Polka is currently meditating inside the stuffed shark. Solitaire is talking to Hotrung about what he is looking for. A superhero, an illegitimate child, and a lawyer beyond the sky. That is a hindrance to this world. It is close to what Solitaire wants. Everything that happened to him must have some connection. Iwanome is working diligently to find more information about the case, rummaging through old files. Before Iwanome became a policeman, Hoatiu Trung appeared. The pirate group led by Sabaramond came to Corpse God for a fortune-telling. A guest showed them a video of meditating hands. He believed that this was not created by Solitaire. His name is Makoto, and he is a forensic expert working for Iwanome. Xiao Yu was shocked to learn that Hosorogi was the chess piece being moved. At this time, he told Corpse God what Solitaire had told him on the stage. Hosorogi does not understand what is happening. Finally, what is Solitaire's plan? Corpse God welcomes the next guest, a bone leader named Arius. He stepped in immediately, making Corpse God dizzy. He had never seen so much killing intent concentrated in one person. Even if this person had killed 1 million people on the battlefield, it wouldn't be this much. Moreover, killing intent filled with resentment was only a small part. The rest was desire. Corpse God didn't want to show he was tense, so he cast a spell on his face. By checking the phones of the guards around this building, the leader knows they exist to protect Poka. As for what Corpse God said, he doesn't know if it's the truth or a deception. Solitaire is busy setting up equipment to livestream Higurashi. Higurashi genuinely didn't know what Sabaramond was. Arius asked Corpse God about the fate he experienced 100 years ago. His friends 100 years ago incurred a curse and were hunted. He wanted to meet them again to understand the reason for everything. This person was different from the children with Corpse God back then, those who were killed because they were with him. Corpse God used magic on Arius. He couldn't detect it. He didn't have a demon eye, so he couldn't see. Corpse God tried to touch Arius's heart and soul. The killing intents tried to stop him. Corpse God felt the magic level, the level of a royal mage, not to be underestimated. Is this really a person of this empire? The leader also suspected Corpse God, a person born ordinary in this world. Why did he have such abilities? Or was he a substitute? Corpse God was trying to delve deeper into this person's soul when a girl suddenly pushed him to stop him. He saw the elemental crystals on her head. The signs showed that this place was extremely dangerous. The leader had to leave this place immediately. If it were one person, it might be a coincidence. But here were 3 people with soul colors stained by his old world. What should Corpse God do? Should he save them? Suddenly, Sora was whisked away by the guard Tapo. At this time, Kacho was wondering if there was anything interesting today when she met Tapo in front of Corpse God's building. Tapo asked Takeru for permission and was granted it by Kacho to investigate. As the two entered the building, an ominous feeling struck Kacho. The customers of Corpse God emerged like soulless husks, making Tapo feel a sense of familiarity from his own family. He rushed to check the situation, but was stopped by Masaki for a chat. While Masaki was talking to Kacho, Tapo suddenly unleashed a blow, sending Sora crashing into the wall before she could even comprehend what was happening. He realized she was the one who had attacked the idols around Corpse God's building. Sora was also confused because, clearly, when she acted, she was very professional, yet she was still discovered. It was all thanks to the scent on her clothes. The assassins of the Xiao Yu clan have a distinctive scent that clings to their victims. Combined with Tapo's keen sense of smell, there was no escape. The commotion outside attracted everyone's attention. In this tense situation, Corpse God calmly requested Masaki to escort Kacho out of the building. Taking advantage of Tapo's distraction from Kacho's camera flash, Arius darted like the wind, unleashing a magic spell that sent Tapo flying to the side. Arius's recent move and use of magic reminded me of the first royal mage, Sabaramond. My attendant acknowledged his talent, only he could easily steal the magic of spirits to infuse into himself. A normal person would be twisted by that very magic, like a worm, and explode. Despite possessing such talent, Sabaramond always wished to be like me, because I am favored by souls and despised by human mages. Returning to the scene, Arius thought it was time they stopped making noise at the tailor's workplace. He gifted the main character a necklace containing rare, hard-to-find gems to compensate for the battle. I was about to refuse the gift when Tapo jumped up and threw a knife towards Arius's group. Sora blocked it with her body, and the wound healed instantly. This astonishing recovery ability reminded me of the Royal Assassination Squad's capabilities. Arius was quite surprised by the tailor's composure after witnessing everything. After hearing my clever explanation, they all hugged and escaped through the window. The storm has passed, so Takumi dares to show his face again to inquire about the situation. I confirm that Arius's identity is definitely the illegitimate children that Hoatiu Truong is hunting. The way they use magic in their faces are very similar to Sabaramond. Although Arius's face is still quite blurry in their souls, colors are different. On the way back, Sora kept complaining about being prevented from having fun, but The reason Arius rushed away is because someone is using his name Sabarimond as a passport. The elders in their organization are going crazy because a clip about the monster Solitaire was just uploaded to social media. The main character in the clip is Higurashi, who is spreading knowledge about Sabarimond to everyone. Regarding the transaction of gifting me the fixed necklace with precious stones, it was not a great loss for Arius. I just discovered that the real Poca was kidnapped by the group of the red-haired young man. Actually, it's not that Arius knows Poca's real identity and brought him along. It's because in the conversation, his spirit became interested in the shark next to the fortune teller. Arius's guess is that Corpse God is a guest from another world. He might be controlled by a mage from another world. The spirit showed interest in this, so it might be an appetizer. Perhaps that mage instructed him through this stuffed toy. After that, he had to study this, and also protect it from being burned by the fire ants. I have my demonic eyes on it, so don't worry. Tapo came to ask me to read fortunes, but in reality, it was to receive Takeru's phone call. Takeru explained the situation of this battle to him. Takeru wants him to reveal the identity of those people. Although he is not very sure, he will try. Higurashi looked at the results of what Solitaire had done and got angry. It's been a long time since he yelled like this. He's just a runaway. He doesn't know anything. Then why show his face? Sister Maria also knows about this. But all she cares about is the cute little boy Xiaoyu and little girl Misaki. Hoa Tiu Truong has been active for over 100 years. Therefore, Iwanome's investigation direction has changed. They need to investigate why Hoa Tiu Truong became an enemy of Sabarimond. The police found a similar case 100 years ago about a fire incident in Shinjuku. 16 people died, most of them children, trapped in a place like a connected prison. Higurashi's video made everyone frantic. Corpse God doesn't understand Solitaire's plan. Spreading the name Sabarimond around the world will only make distinguishing reality from falsehood more difficult, won't it? What is that guy's plan about fortune-telling? Corpse God needs to prepare. He wants to set an appointment in 3.5 days, but Takeru is suspicious. Does this guy have a deal with those foreigners? He ordered his subordinates to seize Corpse God's property and find out his intentions. Arius's group was summoned by a group of lackeys of the elders. These guys haven't even paid respects to him and his retainers. The price to pay is death. Corpse God's group still doesn't dare to rescue the pirate Poca because the opponent is too dangerous, especially the young girl Lulu, who is possessed by a spirit. Just one of the 3 of them is enough to destroy an entire city. Indeed, Lulu's strength alone has killed quite a few people. Lulu is quite bored because she accidentally harmed too many people after the recent battle. Arius comforted her, saying that thanks to Lulu's pleas, others were only severely injured, not killed. They were attacked by people within their own organization because they feared Arius's group would leak information to the Great Elder. As for Arius, with the motto of fearing nothing, he even wants to draw the Great Elder's attention to one place to clean up once and for all. Higurashi is very curious why the monster Solitaire is in Corpse God's building and whether the giant hands hanging in the sky in the clip are Solitaire's tricks. Solitaire still chooses to evade these questions. According to Higurashi, the Rabbit King, Solitaire's excessive play has made him the center of all incidents in Shinjuku. Perhaps next time, if there's a killer at the door, no puppet will be able to save him. At the hospital, Mamoruba is trying to suppress his pain and laughter just because he saw Higurashi's funny clip. He decided to forgive the traitor, but is also a bit jealous because he hasn't had a chance to get an autograph from his idol. Meanwhile, Maria went to Bravo's old guard post to inquire about Xiaoyu's relatives. Bravo tried to send a message to inform Takeru, but was stopped by Maria. However, the one trapped here is Maria when she was cornered by Bravo. Unfortunately for Maria, she found the only person in the clan who cared about her brother Xiaoyu. In the past, when the whole clan was deliberating Xiaoyu's fate, he had just returned from his first mission in tatters. Some troublemakers let slip. Those people, one had his lower jaw removed, and the other had an arm removed. Because of the clan's bullying, Bravo felt grateful to Maria for helping her brother escape, but to fight for Xiaoyu's custody. Wait until the next life to think about it. Therefore, the 2 strongest of the 2 clans prepared to fight for Xiaoyu's custody. Meanwhile, he is still studying the mysterious stone with Corpse God to prepare for the upcoming all-out war. Corpse God intended to inform Rosen that Polka had been kidnapped, but unfortunately, it was his hospitalization day, so he couldn't report it yet. Xiaoyu now feels guilty towards his parents for not fulfilling his responsibilities. Corpse God being kidnapped makes him feel very guilty. The old master still doesn't know that today is his regular health checkup day. He confided in Corpse God why he hated Polka so much. It was simply because he wanted to be the old master's son. He was just jealous of Polka. Blood ties are something he doesn't have. Corpse God was sold for money. Therefore, he is also jealous of such connections. But there are connections that are not just blood ties. This time, he will create a peaceful world for everyone. Finally, Takeru had to summon lemmings to prepare for the all-out battle in 3 days. At the Corpse God group's base, Takumi also has to work day and night to continuously monitor the movements of important figures. The one who gives him the most headache is none other than the showy Saint Solitaire, with her new tricks. Everyone at the police scene is sure that it was caused by Solitaire, but only Iwanome thinks differently. According to him, these tricks are too meaningless to be Solitaire's. Indeed, the ones behind these tricks are the group of the wizard Arius. They came to meet their idol and revealed to Solitaire the true symbol of the Empire. Corpse God was sketching something when Misaki came to ask about the companion he had summoned in front of Kajisa. The main character, according to the priest's advice, cherishes any companion who enters his life, even for a short time. Corpse God also sensed that the 3 people who took Polka away seemed to have been drawn by someone from another world like him. Misaki advised him that ever since he arrived, everything he's done has been very positive. Having known each other for a long time, this is the first time he's heard something that sounds good. The whole group will fight together to get Polka back from the kidnappers. Iwanome and Aras have now found the house where the terrible accident occurred 100 years ago. The house was somehow bought by a wealthy merchant for a high price and was meticulously renovated. Iwanome's sixth sense told him that Firekiller and Solitaire are collaborating. Therefore, they will investigate from here. The monster Solitaire, before accepting Arius' offer to cooperate, wanted to see if Arius could escape the fate of being burned by Firekiller. In an instant, Firekiller gathered around to prepare to burn Sabaramon's illegitimate children. Firekiller burned everything around. At this rate, if they don't run, they will be burned to death. Arius confronts Firekiller. Arius' ancestors experimented on people to pass on their powers 100 years ago. They burned 18 experimental subjects to keep it a secret. However, the number of bodies found was 16. This means there were survivors, and they were twins. To complete their revenge, they don't hesitate to harm innocent people. How is that different from those old leaders? Firekiller does not deny that he is the embodiment of evil. After completing his revenge, he will burn himself. Firekiller does not take revenge foolishly. He disappeared in an instant. That was just to test the opponent's strength. Solitaire was captured and interrogated. Arius asked him the reason for appearing at Polka's mansion. Solitaire performed some tricks to distract him and disappeared. Up until now, Arius' magic could only enhance physical and mental strength, the origin of his power in this world. The talents and magic of the talented Sabaramon from another world must have appeared. But he is just a failure, an illegitimate child of Sabaramon. The first time he felt magical power was when Corpse God touched his soul. Arius wants to return to his homeland, or if he can't go back, he hopes this world has something interesting for him to stay. The general store has contacted Sabaramon. It seems he is researching Polka's lineage, especially information about the child's mother. Iwanome and Aras found documents about a fire that occurred 100 years ago in the house they visited yesterday. According to the strange young man they met yesterday, he is managing the house at the owner's request. In fact, they have confirmed with the homeowner, and what the young man said is the truth. This makes Iwanome even more determined to find out the truth behind the name Sabaramon. Meanwhile, at headquarters, Kajisa decides to observe to understand Corpse God's abilities. Takeru also received information that the 3 girls had an encounter with a man who looked like Solitaire last night. They also had people wearing hats with strange symbols. The deadline is approaching, but Corpse God is still confused, wondering if Takeru understands that those 3 are not a threat to the Shinoyama clan and will cooperate with them. Before he could finish speaking, Misaki interrupted, saying he was talking nonsense, and asked what he planned to do after saving Polka. But Corpse God has thought of it. He will control the spirit. Finally, it's their turn, and Takumi, so Misaki can't help but smile excitedly. But the current concern is how to distinguish the real Polka. It will be very difficult if everything becomes chaotic at the crucial moment, and the name Corpse God is also too difficult to pronounce. At this moment, Corpse God revealed the truth. He has another name, but it is linked to a sad past, so he does not want to mention it. Now is a good opportunity for him to tell everyone. Before he could finish speaking, Corpse God suddenly received news that the two girls had taken the real Polka elsewhere. Two of them left the hotel, while the whereabouts of the remaining one are still unclear. Suddenly, he heard footsteps in the hallway, and Corpse God immediately became alert. The remaining person has arrived as scheduled. The door opened, and his smiling face appeared, looking completely harmless. He deliberately used the subway to avoid being discovered. Everyone immediately became alert, but he just came to make friends with Corpse God. Then, the statue declared that in this world, only he could understand the feelings and power of the Corpse God. The more he spoke, the more confused the Corpse God became, not understanding anything. Only when he learned that the emergence of Polka, or rather, this body, was the descendant of the Soul Eye tribe, did the Corpse God revive. He heard a name that he thought would never be mentioned again. At this moment, he also understood why he was reincarnated into this world. Polka's mother was the one the Corpse God wanted to save most in his past life, but couldn't. The Corpse God recalled the only condition when he activated the reincarnation technique to enter the recently deceased body of a member of his own tribe. He just didn't understand why it was connected to his mother, who had come to this world. The other person's words made the Corpse God fall into thought. By the time he figured everything out, the conversation had taken a completely different turn. The Corpse God angrily demanded the return of his brother, or rather Polka. These words confused the red-haired youth, but he immediately understood the problem. The body was Polka's, but the soul belonged to someone else, and he realized Polka's soul was in the missing pet shark. But that didn't matter. Now was the main issue. If the soul inside Polka also came from another world and had something to do with the seal printed on the young man's clothes, he thought both should join forces to get rid of the beasts. But the Corpse God wasn't afraid of that. He just asked if the young man knew who Erase was. Unexpectedly, he actually knew and became excited, thinking the Corpse God and he were acquaintances. It turned out this red-haired youth was the son of Erase, who had come to invite the Corpse God to join his organization, but he immediately refused. However, the red-haired youth would not accept it and insisted on forcing the Corpse God to show his strength. In that case, he would not be polite anymore. A giant skeletal arm immediately appeared, holding him firmly, and countless strange boxes emerged from the ground. The young man immediately realized this was magic from the spirit realm and recognized the true identity of the Corpse God, a high-ranking royal mage. The red-haired young man was just thrown out the window after speaking. This is also when the plan begins. Meanwhile, the Fire Eater beasts were found by Iwanome and his companions. Iwanome is not confused. Fire Eater beast is not the name of an individual. In the documents left by Hosorogi, that person conducted experiments on humans. The murder and imprisonment that the group called Sabaramont carried out after completing experiments on humans, and 2 survivors were the source of the Fire Eater beast. This is an experiment to graft abnormal rules onto humans. In other words, the Fire Eater beast inside them is a false personality sown through hypnosis. The first Fire Eater beast died. He somehow created his consciousness in this world. Although he cannot accuse these people of arson, Iwanome will definitely not let them cause another conflagration. From Corpse God's perspective, they thought the person thrown out was the red-haired young man. But unexpectedly, it was the main character he pushed out of the building. The battle began like this. They thought the red-haired young man was just a decoy, but unexpectedly, he had real power, although his technique was just releasing magical power. At this time, the red-haired young man's teammate also arrived, but was stopped by Corpse God's teammate. Lulu, seeking Arius' help, realizes she is targeted by Misaki. The red-haired young man wants to change the world, but Corpse God does not. He wants his brother's world to remain as it is. It is peaceful, so let it be peaceful. On another front, others are also fiercely fighting their enemies. Looking at the scene before him, Corpse God realizes he does not belong to this world. Given the current situation, he will pull the beings from this other world back into the void at once. Corpse God's past is gradually revealed. In the previous world, Corpse God was just a skeleton and was manipulated to self-destruct his closest person. Even so, that person never hated Corpse God. Even as a soul, he smiled gently and helped Corpse God deal with his remains, waiting for him. But Corpse God could not smile. In the end, the smile of a skeleton cannot be seen. Back to the battle of life and death. Corpse God prepares to use all his strength to teach the arrogant young man in front of him a lesson. Finally, Takumi could not refute his teammate's arrogant declaration. Takumi connects to the city's loudspeakers and begins to lecture Corpse God. Initially, when he saw the power of Corpse God, he was truly terrified. However, Corpse God also taught him and Misaki the true meaning of friendship. Takumi will not let Corpse God disappear from their base without saying goodbye. He even shut off all electricity and cameras in the entire city so that Corpse God could confidently display his power. Arius intended to deal with Corpse God's entire group first, but naturally, he had to step over the protagonist's corpse first. Corpse God threw down 2 precious stones to exchange for enough magical power to summon 3 6-headed monsters. Thanks to Takumi's enlightenment, Corpse God began to want to fight for himself and his teammates. Arius had to face 3 ferocious beasts at the same time. After a period of fighting, unfortunate bystanders began to appear around them. Arius believed that even if no security cameras recorded it, with so many deaths, how could it be concealed? However, Corpse God moved all the people in the area to another place. Arius fell into a big trap as he stood on Corpse God's territory. Now, Corpse God can freely use his power without worrying about innocent civilians being caught up. The protagonist's dragon began to spew fire at the face of the wizard Arius. Kajisa's group had blocked all forces that could affect the protagonist's battle. Arius was not an easy opponent. With just one technique, he cut the dragon into pieces. At this moment, Corpse God decided to summon the soul of the friend he had ascended to heaven in the previous world. This ritual took longer than he expected. Arius realized that Corpse God's friend was none other than the Empress of the Empire. Arius could not believe his eyes because, according to what he knew, Corpse God was the one who assassinated the Empress of the Empire. Not only the Empress, but also the strongest members of the Empire had interacted with Corpse God before they died. Now the all-out battle between a genius and the entire allied forces of the protagonist has begun. Solitaire and Hua Chu Truong stood not far away, also discussing what they should do. Hua Chu Truong intended to burn down the entire city, along with the wizards, to eliminate future troubles. Suzuka's spirit appeared to beg Master Hifumi, "Please let my subordinates resolve this matter." In Iwanome's group, he is also trying to persuade Master Hifumi. Even if he is burned as a warning, Iwanome wants Master Hifumi to release the innocent people he is manipulating. His 3rd unit will handle Subaramon's bastards for him. Iwanome is ready for Master Hifumi to transfer his consciousness into him for supervision. The fight between the 2 women fighting over Polka has finally reached its climax. Lulu can't understand why this girl with a mental disorder is so reckless to try to get back a stuffed animal. Misaki rushed forward but was struck by a falling advertisement board. Fortunately, thanks to her vampire abilities, she was unharmed. The fragile girl was very angry, and Lulu's spirit separated all the rocks and dirt around to prevent Misaki from advancing. In an instant of carelessness, the shark Polka escaped on its own and jumped into the sky for Misaki to catch. The lemmings somehow managed to join in and fight alongside Xiao Yu. After avoiding the lemmings' trap, Sora immediately realized this disaster. Sora gathered her strength to prepare for an all-out battle with the zombie. Xiao Yu acted with her new abilities, easily knocking the girl through the building opposite. Now, only the fight between the 200-year-old beings remains. After all, Xiao Yu has set aside her grudges and rushed to help Misaki rescue the shark Polka. As soon as he arrived, Misaki threw the dangling Polka to him to hold. Suddenly, a truck was possessed by a spirit and crashed into them. Somehow, Misaki turned the entire truck into drops of water. Even Misaki herself was surprised by her own advanced abilities. Xiao Yu was admiring it, but didn't know that a boulder was also falling on his head. Fortunately, an expert used a shovel to break the boulder and save him. The spirit was subdued by an old woman. She was also very happy to see her grandchildren here. The one who saved Xiao Yu was Bravo, and she also temporarily pacified the fight with Maria. Arius was also surprised that the spirit was being controlled by someone. Now he has to clean up the mess he created on his own. As he faced Arius's techniques, Corpse God felt he resembled a race even more. Not only did he resemble him, but Arius even used techniques familiar to a race. The spirit in Arius's words was suppressed. Well, he would only use the techniques a race left behind to fight Corpse God. But this time, his opponent wasn't him, but his super divine friend. Against the Great Emperor, Arius's techniques were like a mere speck. The battle ended, and Huo Xiaochong's revenge was fulfilled. Arius's side suffered no injuries, but they were no less battered. The battle simply concluded without casualties. Arius also felt that this world had some purpose for him to live for.